across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good morning. It's Ian Collins in for Jeremy Kyle. It's another week and the news agenda keeps on building. It's D-Day for Keir Starmer. Today the Prime Minister will face the House of Commons for the latest instalments of Who Knew What, When, Why and How. He will clarify that he didn't mislead Parliament, why he apparently was the last to know something of such importance. Will he today do the noble thing and resign? Get yourself a big bucket of popcorn and a foot-long hot dog. The curtain goes up later today. Meanwhile, the shocks are circling. Angela Rayner and Andy Burnham are on manoeuvres. They apparently held a secret summit on Friday, no doubt in Salford's Nando's, and never seen anything like it, apparently. Clearly, they were on manoeuvres for the path to power, or more probably when Starmer will, of course, walk that plank. Reform's Lena Cunningham joins us later. She's back to take your questions. Reform, of course, hoping to be the biggest winners on May the 7th. What would you like to ask Reform UK's London mayoral candidate? And have you got a food intolerance? Do chips bring you out in a rash? Does sugar send your head into a spin and have you howling at the moon? Or does broccoli give you a compelling urge to want to start gnawing your own elbows? If so, you could be in for a windfall. The number of people getting disability benefits for food intolerance has risen by 500%. Well, what do you make of public loos, by the way? Do you know there's only one public loo for every 15,000 of us? You wouldn't want to be the 15,000th, would you, in that loo? I'm just pointing that out. Details to come. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk. 0344 499 1000. Poppy Coburn is back with us from The Telegraph. How you doing?
Very good. How are you?
Good. It's a big day.
It is indeed.
It's a big day. It's an exciting day. We live for these kind of days, Poppy.
No one likes the Monday morning feeling, but I bet that Keir Starmer has probably got the worst case of Monday morning scaries in the history of
I was thinking
British
this,
politics.
Coming into work at about kind of 5 o'clock, I was just imagining right now in number 10, Starmer's in the bathroom looking in the mirror going, I did not mislead Parliament. He'll be going through all the lines.
Yeah, I mean...
I was the last to know.
The problem is that, and you can see it in his face, he knows that we don't believe it.
Yeah.
He knows that his own party don't believe it. When I was literally listening to, some of his backbench MPs over the weekend, and even they were going, well, I'm not going to defend it. They can't defend their own leader because they know how ridiculous it looks.
But the whole thing looks ridiculous. And there's so many other elements. Now this is all kind of unravelling that doesn't make any sense. So it's true that you can get a job and then the security clearance happens as you're being employed. OK, that can happen. Although I would have said with Mandelson, you would tread extra carefully on that one because there were so many red. I mean, anyone whose nickname is the Prince of Darkness, frankly, who's going through a security check, you might say this one needs special attention. But after they'd done this, when apparently, because then there's this lull of time, he didn't pass it, but he'd already got the job at that point, so he's up and running. He's in his palatial kind of place in Washington. Didn't anybody in number 10 in that interim period say, oh, how'd you get on with the security stuff? Anybody got any answers on that? Not one inquisitive mind said in number 10 to the Foreign Office, how did the security clearance go for Peter?
Although, apparently, according to the front page of The Telegraph this morning, I think some senior Whitehall figures are going, well, we actually told him. He did know.
So, well, I was going to say, that's the answer,
exactly.
Isn't it?
Because, but again, you're completely right. The suggestion that the Prime Minister is just such an incurious person. And he didn't even sack Ollie Robbins properly. He called him up. He didn't bother inviting him into his office and saying, explain yourself. Because, and I think this is what we're supposed to take from that, he knows that he was not right to sack Ollie Robbins. He knows that the fault lies entirely with him, not with the civil service. He knows that.
Is Ollie Robbins in the clear on this?
Well, I mean, I think he's been thrown under the bus,
yeah,
to be honest with you. I think is pretty atrocious considering it was Keir Starmer who made such a big deal when he was in opposition.
Well, let's have a listen to Keir Starmer in action on a not dissimilar set of circumstances, attacking Boris Johnson. Here he is.
Look, there are only two possible explanations. Either he's trashing the ministerial code, or he's claiming he was repeatedly lied to by his own advisers and that he didn't know what was going on in his own house and his own office. Come off it. He really does think that it's one rule for him and another rule for everyone else.
Oh, that's going to bite him today, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, there it is, in crystal clear. There's no ambiguity on that clip.
Well, no.
Is he going to live by his own rules and regs on this?
How many times has he said how atrocious it is when politicians throw their underlings under the bus, save their own skin?
I think Angela Rayner had previously tweeted something very similar as well.
Indeed. And, you know, it wouldn't be so offensive if it wasn't coming from Mr Squeaky Clean, from the man who campaigned on change.
That's the point.
Cleaning up sleaze in politics. For him to be involved in this whole situation. Because if he was honest, what he would actually have said was, look, I took a political gamble.
Yep.
I thought that Peter Mandelson was the man that we needed to send to America. He would have a relationship with the Trump administration. He was the best man for the job. So I put him out there. I took a risk.
Yeah.
The risk didn't pay off. But of course, the addendum to that is, because that risk failed, because this is all blown up in my face, I'm now going to take the difficult decision to resign as Prime Minister.
Yeah.
But he's not going to do that.
He's not going to do that. The one thing that hasn't, I haven't heard many politicians asked about this even, is the David Maddox Independent story, which is months and months old now. This predates this year. I mean, this goes back to last year when he phoned Number 10 and said, I've heard, I think from more than one source, that Peter Mandelson failed his security vetting.
Yeah.
Now that is it, isn't it? That if all the other, oh no, he said this at this time and he told me this at that time and that file didn't get passed on here and there was a document that was left under a stack of A4 by the photocopy. Even if you went with all of that, which it takes a lot to go with all of that, the fact that a journalist months ago in 2025 called Downing Street to ask about it, that's end off, isn't it?
Well, also, I mean, for goodness sake, we knew about Peter Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. It was in the public domain.
Yeah.
The Financial Times had been reporting on that years ago. Like, we already knew that Peter Mandelson was best pals with one of the world's most infamous paedophiles.
Yes.
Like, that was the facts of the case. Keir Starmer knew that. All the Labour front bench who are now pretending that they've got nothing to do with this knew that. They all knew who this man was. It's not the first time Peter Mandelson has had scandals in public like it either. It was a political risk. It blew up in his face, and now he's trying to hide behind procedure, as he always does, to get out of that.
What's interesting about the Mandelson thing, again, every now and again you read something in a story and think, and you must know this as a journalist, you think I must have misread that. I'll read it again, because surely this must be a wider known fact. When Mandelson stayed at Epstein's house back in 2009, Mandelson was the business secretary and the sort of de facto deputy prime minister. Epstein was in jail for child sex offences at that time. Public knowledge. I mean, there it is. I mean, that wasn't even... Nobody was even hiding that. If somebody at the time, if Gordon Brown had, popped his clogs or something awful like that, Peter Mandelson would be the person that would take up the cudgels. So they would have to have known, where's Peter? We're in recess, where's Peter? Oh, he's staying at Jeffrey Epstein's house in America. Well, Jeffrey Epstein, the guy who's in jail for the child sex offences. That was happening in real time.
There were photos being published in media publications from a decade ago showing him walking around wearing a Jeffrey Epstein monogrammed jumper. We knew his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. It was in the public domain for years. It did not take a genius to find out about this relationship that Peter Mandelson was having. So aside from all the other many scandals that he has had in public life so far, they cannot pretend they didn't know this. Okay, so actually the whole vetting stuff, I mean, most of the vetting is actually about his financial questions, whether or not he had involvement in this lobbying firm that might have had ties to China. I'm sorry, but actually that's a secondary story for me. The major part of this scandal is that he was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein. We knew that. The Labour government knew that, and yet they still wanted this man who was best friends with a paedophile to be our representative
Exactly.
to the United States of America, which is supposed to be the country we have the strongest relationship with. That is worth them all resigning, in my opinion.
100%. My takeaway from this conversation, Poppy, and probably for the remainder of the day, will be the reference to a Jeffrey Epstein monogrammed jumper.
Seriously?
Was he doing merch, this fellow? What was going on?
He's going out for a run. It's so weird. The whole situation is weird, and you can see in those leaked emails. I mean, it's just pathetic. What a repugnant man that Peter Mandelson is. But, you know, I think equally repugnant to be so cowardly as Keir Starmer is.
It is, yeah, absolutely. I think with Mandelson and Epstein, it was, I mean, that whole money and power thing, which is the greatest drug for somebody like Mandelson. I think he thought when he was hanging out with Epstein that he was in the next tier above power. So you've got all the democratically elected people, the presidents and the prime minister. Then you've got people like Jeffrey. Yeah. That's where the real power is. These are the people that really matter. I think he thought he was in a circle of significance, but never took a step back to say, why are there quite a lot of 14, 15-year-old girls running around every place I go that Jeffrey is? So are these girls. He was never inquisitive. For a man whose brain was meant to be razor sharp in terms of his instinct, spotting a story, knowing where a bear trap is, he didn't spot that Jeffrey Epstein was a wrong one.
No, I'm sure he found the whole thing very intoxicating, didn't he? You know, and I mean, spotting is a wrong one. He is a wrong one himself. He'd have to look in the mirror if he wants to spot a wrong one. Yeah. I just hope that this finally clears the image that I think Keir Starmer has been so carefully cultivating for years, which is that he's a normal man, he's a nice normal man, he's someone you can go down the pub and have a pint with, he's someone you can trust, he's not like other politicians, he is just like other politicians. Actually, he's worse, he's an incompetent version of Boris Johnson, okay? He wasn't exactly particularly competent in certain areas anyway.
Indeed.
He's got just as much sleaze, just as much filth that's kind of buzzing around his government. I mean, literally the first couple of weeks when Labour came in, it was the Lord Ali story about him getting his socks and glasses paid for by a rich donor. I mean, the idea that Keir Starmer is supposed to be this paragon of virtue is for the birds.
The Prime Minister was walking around in a pair of socks that cost more than my car. It's just worth putting that out there. I don't know what they were made of or who the hell made them, but these were... he was wearing clobber that was, you know, up there, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was.
Even his glasses, you know, whereas about £1,000's worth of glasses he was wearing. And again, it comes back to what we said last week. This was the party that came into power saying, we don't know people like the millionaires. They're not, you know, well, that's not us. That's what the Tories do. They hang around with all these rich old duffers. We're with the working people. And, of course, it was the antitheses of that. And that's continued ever since. And it culminates in all of this. Yesterday, of course, is Media Round Sunday for senior cabinet ministers. Liz Kendall was in the studios yesterday. And, of course, she was asked about this whole Mandelson debacle. Have a listen.
If the Prime Minister had known that UK security vetting had not cleared him, the appointment would have been withdrawn. It wouldn't have mattered how close that was to the President's inauguration or any of that.
That's easy to say that now.
But I believe that because there is no way that the Prime Minister would have continued with it had he known the facts that he knows now.
And you can say that now. But my question is here, when the Prime Minister stood up after months of controversy around this appointment, having promised the country he would get to the bottom of everything that happened, having been forced by opposition parties to say that he would publish everything, had he not bothered to check what had happened with his security clearance when he stood up and told the country that it had given him clearance for the role?
And that's because he was given this, what's called developed vetting status.
Well, you see, none of this, again, makes sense, Poppy, because even if you wanted to give Starmer the benefit of the doubt and say that, you know, the only person in the entirety of Whitehall was Ollie Robbins, the security people are these kind of correctly, you know, unnamed characters that do this work in the background. It's nothing to do with them. They did their job. So Ollie Robbins was the only person in the whole building, in the whole postcode of Whitehall, that had this bit of information. Even if that was the case, come the firing of Peter Mandelson, at that point, when Starmer had stood up and said, you know, he went through all the checks and all that, at that point, wouldn't you, if you were the chief to the Prime Minister, have called Ollie Robbins into Downing Street and said, look, take me through every single moment here. I want to go day by day what you knew, because the Prime Minister is about to go out and tell Parliament. He's going to sit in TV and radio studios, tell me everything. So even at that point, when Starmer was telling us he lied and lied and lied again, I think was the phrase that Starmer used. He passed all the necessary vet, all of this stuff. Nobody was inquisitive enough to ask for the fuller details. And the Foreign Office, Ollie Robbins included, did not say, oh, I think the Prime Minister should know that this happened.
It's also not good enough for a Prime Minister to say, oh, I was lied to. Oh, well, Peter Mandelson's obviously never lied to anyone before, so I guess you just took him at face value.
Yes.
It's a question of judgment. If you're the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, I need to believe that you've got better judgment than you and I, OK? Because you're supposed to be operating on a higher level.
Yep.
You're supposed to take these calls, and when you get them wrong, if you get them wrong in a way as extraordinarily embarrassing as this one, then you resign, you stand down.
Yes.
And I think in the case of Keir Starmer, it is not the first time that he's just pleaded ignorance. Well, that's not good enough. Either you're stupid or you're lying. In either case, you shouldn't be our Prime Minister. I don't really understand why he thinks that pretending that he knows nothing about what people are actually doing behind the scenes in Number 10 actually, you know, makes him look better. It makes him look much worse.
Of course it does. There is a quirk in our system of security clearance. If you're an elected official, if you're a minister or whatever, you don't have to go through the security clearance. So David Lammy, you could get elected as an MP on a Monday, become the Foreign Secretary on a Tuesday, and by Wednesday you've got full top-tier security clearance without any checks being done, because you're elected. But if you're a civil servant, and of course the ambassador role is a civil servant position, you do have to go through it. So did the Foreign Office work on the basis that, well, this is Mandelson, he's already been in government for years back in the day, so he's you know, familiar with the process of... So did they treat him lighter in that respect? And was it because it was a political appointment that they kind of chose to ignore something as sensitive and as crucial and important as security when it comes to countries like China and Russia?
Yeah, I mean, the argument would then be against still a political one, which is that they were so desperate to get him into position because they thought that we so desperately needed to have Peter Mandelson talking with the Trump administration, which actually turned out to be a disaster, as you can find out. If you talk to any diplomats, you will say Karen Pierce was brilliant. Peter Mandelson was completely considered to be the wrong person to be in the role by the Americans, but there you go. But it all comes back to Keir Starmer's judgment again. Because if it was a political decision to rush him through that process, because we needed him so desperately in that role, then the buck stops with him.
Were they seduced by the fact, just briefly, Poppy, by the fact that it was a Trump administration and they thought Mandelson has actually got some commonality with Trump in the sense that they've both been mentioned in this Epstein thing? Neither, by the way, have been convicted of anything in that respect. But did they think there was they needed a kind of bit of a mischievous character to be their contact to the Oval Office?
I was in Washington during the inauguration, and I was speaking to some people who were working, you know, in diplomatic affairs, and every single one of them said to me, "This is a terrible appointment. Why have you put this sleazy person in this job?"
Really?
They were appalled that he was put into that role. So.
This comes in from Keith, who says, we all know why Starmer didn't come to the House of Commons last Wednesday to answer questions. He's now had 6 days to work out what weasel lawyer words to say so he doesn't get caught lying on Monday. Yes, I mean, that would have been, you apparently found out last Tuesday, should have really addressed the House of Commons immediately, you might have thought, an issue so urgent, but he didn't. But as Keith rightly points out, he's had nearly a week now to kind of hone in on a major in what he's going to say. Yeah, he's coming up with it. They've spent the whole weekend at Chequers doing exactly this. Poppy is with us. Your comments on the way as well. 0344 499 1000. You can drop us a voice note there as well. We're discussing everything Starmer related. There's other stuff on the agenda as well. Food intolerances. I'll come back to that with Poppy in just a second, because apparently if you have a food intolerance, then you could be in for a bit of a bumper payday. Because we learned today that disability claims for those who've got a food intolerance have risen, disability claims, by 500% because you're allergic to carrots or something similar. 0344 499 1000, message 87222. This is Talk.
The Crown is facing its gravest test in decades, and the royal tea from Talk is your front row seat. With royal reputations under pressure and probing questions about public trust, we unpack every twist and revelation with the biggest names in the business. From the throne room at Buckingham Palace to a mansion in Montecito, we follow every royal ripple. Never miss a moment of The Crown in crisis. Subscribe to the Royal Tea from Talk on the app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, 25 minutes after 6 o'clock. It is Talk Breakfast. This is Ian Collins for the remainder of this week in for Jeremy Kyle. We're talking all things Starmer related. Why would we not be? Today is D-Day for the Prime Minister. Let's get a voice note on this. Comes from Ian. Morning, Ian.
Good morning, Ian. Good morning, Pops. Ian from Unferth. It seems quite clear that our Prime Minister has been very closely wedded to the term plausible deniability throughout his whole career. If we can't prove it, he didn't do it. If he didn't know, then he's not across everything that's going on in his office, and he's got to go. And if he did know, he's got to go. But what do I know? I'm only a wagon driver. Anyway, looking forward to this week. It's going to be one hell of a watch. Get your popcorn out, and remember, Ian, or should I say, never forget, you're worse than Jeremy Kyle. Good morning.
That was reference a cracking call we had with Lord Fawkes on Friday, who was absolutely bonkers. And it just turned into a stupid row with him, which sort of culminated, I think twice he said, "You're worse than Jeremy Kyle."
That's very
I mean, how dare he? Because Jezza had previously had a row with him as well. So he's got form, Fawkesy. He wasn't a happy man. He didn't like the fact we had Dan Hodges on. He called Dan some kind of right-wing establishment mouthpiece or something like that. I don't think you call Dan Hodges some extreme right-winger.
I wouldn't say that,
in
no.
a million years. But actually, when Ian there just said, and don't use the word only in front of the word truck driver. You guys are the backbone of shifting gear around. That's the wrong term, isn't it? But you take the point of shifting. Well, all sorts of things around this country. Plausible deniability. Great point that. If you were in a courtroom this afternoon with this case as it stands, then Starmer could win that case because of plausible deniability.
Well, he's a lawyer.
Yeah,
he
but the
knows how
you'd
to
be
win
saying
on
to the jury,
technicalities.
you'd be saying to the jury, can you 100% beyond any shadow of a doubt say that it wasn't possible that Keir Starmer didn't know? And the jury would go, well, no, because it was possible. So he'd get a not guilty.
Well,
he's using that, as Ian said.
But he's unlucky because it turns out that he's not in a courtroom. He's in the court of public opinion.
And ignorance is not a defence.
Yeah, and, funnily enough, in a month's time, people are going to be, showing what they think of the Prime Minister. So he is not in a position where he can just go, oh, well, there's no conclusive evidence to prove that I knew this or didn't know this. And so, I'm wiping my hands of it. Let's move on to the next political problem. Like, no, I'm sorry. You have destroyed people's trust in you. You're not going to be able to get that back. This isn't one case. This is your entire leadership.
Yes.
This is unfortunately just 1 week amongst many weeks of failure.
Every one would assume he's going to make a statement, and that will be followed by questions. Now, Kemi, what's Kemi Badenoch got to do out the traps on this one? What's going to be her first line of attack? Is it going to be very simple? Is it going to be, is the Prime Minister clearly, just to clarify, is the Prime Minister literally telling us he knew nothing about this at all until literally 6 days ago?
She shouldn't accuse him of lying because she'll be forced to retract it.
Yeah.
What she should do is copy his strategy of forensic questioning. She should just ask him over and over and over again very detailed questions about what he knew, what he did, how he responded to the answers that he was getting from people like Ollie Robbins, and she should ask it over and over again because he looks flustered. I don't know if you've been seeing him the last couple of weeks. He looks completely exhausted.
Totally.
I can see him snapping. I really can. So I think she should keep her cool, resist the temptation to go straight for the throat, just ask him the questions, because we all know he does not have a good answer to them.
And make sure that point, the David Maddox point, has to come up, because that, to me, overrides... We can talk about the detail, we can speculate on why. Surely, you know, these people do meet for a drink in the evening. Surely at some point, even... And, of course, the other distinction that is often made, that if something wasn't written down, you can kind of, you know, in Westminster speak, you can sort of claim it never happened. So what somebody told you in a corridor, oh, by the way, did you hear Peter's didn't fail you? That doesn't count. So you can plausibly say, no, we didn't know about it, because there's no written record of it, which is a curious distinction, but it's the one they'll be resting on all the way through this story. Even if you put that to one side, the fact that a journalist phoned Number 10 months ago, last year, and said, I'm hearing Mandelson has failed security, then surely that's it.
That's enough. That should be enough. Yeah, of course. And I think Keir Starmer knows that he does not have a good answer to these questions. As you point out, like it was already in the public domain. We've known about this for months. He cannot continue to play ignorant. He's not a stupid person, you know. As much as he's trying to convince us that he just doesn't seem to understand what's going on outside of his, you know, immediate field of vision, he is not a stupid person. I do not believe that he doesn't talk to his staff members and he doesn't talk to people in Whitehall. I just don't buy it.
Let's have a... Oh, this comes in from Sarah, by the way. Near Plymouth, says, if you talk about disabled people in the context of public toilets, please use the term wheelchair access toilets. A toilet can't actually have a disability. People say disabled toilets, don't they?
Disabled toilets. Well, they usually do actually have the little ramps and different things in them, don't they? Not that I've ever used a disabled toilet.
Never?
Maybe once. But it wasn't the only toilet that was available.
When there's a pint of wicked cider on the table of spoons, and you're thinking,
I wouldn't use it in
I could
spoons,
go.
no.
You see, if this happens in cities, doesn't it, where toilets are in the most extraordinary places, like 3 floors up from where you're sitting, or 3 floors down from where you're sitting. You go down these pokey little staircases. The kind of things that were sort of hidden people during the war.
Well, yeah. I mean, the worst one is some London restaurants. If you ever go to like a restaurant or a bar that's trying to be trendy, you can't actually tell what the men's and the women's are, because they won't just say, you know, women's toilet, men's toilet.
Oh, they'll have a funky sign.
Yeah, and you're looking at it and you're like, is that supposed to be
Is that a female otter or is that a male otter?
It's like...
Because they've gone with an otter theme here.
What's
it
this
looks
supposed
like
to
a
be?
female otter.
It's not until you actually see a man just like kind of barrel through and go straight to a toilet, right, I'm going to trust that his judgment is correct and I'm going to go in the other one. But yeah.
Yeah, but then these days you don't know, do you?
Well, it's hard to tell.
Could be
I could just say I
utilising their
identify
gender
as a man, I
preferences.
suppose, if anyone...
But yes, I've done that. I've literally waited for somebody to go in one and thought, right, I'm going in that one, and hoping that I've got the right one. But yes, there's all manner of... the reason I raise that is because England has just one public toilet for every 15,000 people, following a surge in closures.
Well,
I mean, public toilets are... I mean, it's not the greatest thing to talk about at breakfast time. I understand that. However, we've all been through, you know, when you go into some of these, you know, when you are forced to use a public toilet that's a bit grim, and you kind of find yourself playing your own game of the floor is lava when you go in there, and you're kind of mooching around, right? How many things go... You should kind of be on Britain's Got Talent. It's almost like you're going through some sort of weird assault course to be able to carry out your ablutions without using your hands in any shape or form.
As one of many...
Which for a man is quite tricky.
One of many, many times I felt like this when I was there. I went to Japan last year, and you realise actually that Britain is a pretty miserable way that we treat the public square. And one of the main ways was that public toilets in Japan, you wouldn't believe it, they're spotless. They are completely spotless. And get this, the toilets have heated seats. And then you go to a public toilet in Britain, right, and you're just like, oh my God.
Don't they have... Do Japan have a kind of, like a bidet scenario?
They
like,
do.
as standard?
Yeah, they do. Sometimes the toilets sing as well. They play like a little jingle.
No.
They're living in the future. They really are living in the future.
If the toilet sang to me, I'd run. I mean, what does it sing to you?
You get used to it. It's like a little kind of...
Knees up, Mother Brown.
Cheery little, like, Japanese jingle, you know. It's very nice. It's very pleasant. Once you get over the initial shock, of course, of hearing that, literally when you have your trousers down, it's great.
There's a petrol station near me that has a public loo in it, and I find it strange that you're talking about, you know, big name companies here. And it's an absolute disgrace, this thing, that you only go in there.
I was going to say petrol station toilets, not known for
Yeah, but this is like
niceness.
quite on a high street, but it's right next to the railway station. Yeah. It's a nice sort of area, and you go in and all you want to buy is a packet of crisps or something like that on your way home from work, and you think, oh, I must use the loo quickly, and in you go, and you go in with your parent. There should be a jingle plays when you go in the flipping thing in this place. Some kind of like psycho thing, because you don't know what the hell's going to happen when you get in this thing. And it's just a disgrace. Everything about it is filthy. And I wonder whether it's ever been cleaned in the history of cleaning. I have a sense that this thing has never been touched with a broom or a mop. Well, no one's gone in there with a wipe.
Look, I work in Victoria, so I've seen the kind of state that we leave our public realm in now. I haven't actually ever dared to go to the public toilets at Victoria Station, because it's bad enough looking at the outside. You know, this is stuff I see on a daily basis. Because
you don't want
unbelievable.
Also, I mean, the detail of this, you don't want your trousers, if you're sitting down, you don't want your trousers to touch the floor as well.
Oh, God.
So you're attempting to hold up, you know, I've got the belt in my mouth, like that, sort of, you know, and you're trying not... You don't want anything to happen, and you're using your elbows to turn taps on.
It's like that scene from Train Spotting, isn't it? Like the public toilets.
They have special lighting in some of those toilets as well, for obvious reasons. It's a little bit grim. Maybe there's a job as a toilet attendant for our Prime Minister who could resign today. Maybe that's going to be his next port of call. Is he going to resign today, though, Poppy?
No.
We know he's not.
No, he's not. He's not. He won't make it to the end of the year. I'm 100% certain of that. I think he will... Well, I was saying that he was going to hold on till conference season, and that he would...
But now that's looking...
resign. But now I'm thinking there is so much scandal that's being heaped upon him. Yeah. I do not believe, after the results of the elections in May, that he is going to be able to hold on, because I think, you know, what happens after your party has the May elections is you're asked to explain how you're going to do things differently. If you do badly, of course.
Yeah,
you know, how are you going to change? How are you going to reset? Keir Starmer is not going to be in a position where he can do that.
He hasn't got a reset option, has he?
No, because it's just the same old scandals, the same old people. I mean, he could do a reshuffle, but, like, what's the point?
What's the point of that? We all know what those faces are, and
exactly.
You know, it's not going to make any difference. Today, of course, he gives his big defence as to why he did not know. Let's have a listen to his previous defence on Mandelson. This is Keir Starmer speaking back in February.
Time and time again, Mandelson completely misrepresented the extent of his relationship with Epstein and lied throughout the process, including in response to the due diligence.
Right. There it is, there, isn't it? That, to me, is the gotcha moment in many respects. He lied throughout the process repeatedly. So at that point, you have to assume Keir Starmer had sat down with somebody who'd taken him through various elements of the appointing process of Mandelson, and they had established that he lied and lied about the process time and time again. He went through the process and he lied. So at no point in whatever discussion Starmer had had and with whoever he had it with, at no point did someone say, oh, he even failed his security vetting. Doesn't wash.
No, it doesn't wash at all. I mean, I just think this entire spectacle of watching the Prime Minister pretend that he's a victim, that he was lied to, hoodwinked by Peter Mandelson. Like, let's not forget the person who wanted Mandelson to be there in the first place. It was Morgan McSweeney. He's obviously now exited government, but Morgan McSweeney was the man who arguably is responsible for Keir Starmer being Prime Minister now. If it wasn't for McSweeney, he never would have been able to sit off the left. When Jeremy Corbyn was leader of the Labour Party, he never would have been able to win the kind of leadership campaign. He probably wouldn't have been able to win the election campaign either, as we're seeing what Keir Starmer's like without his, his chief of staff. He knew, of course he knew. He was having constant discussions with this person. You know, even if Keir Starmer didn't know, then his chief of staff certainly did know. And I do not believe that the Prime Minister was not talking to his chief of staff about these matters. I just don't believe it. I don't buy it.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody does now. Poppy is with us. More comments from you on the way. 0344 499 1000. You can voice notice or call us on that number, 87222, if you're sending us a message. It's coming up on 20 to 7. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi, good morning. Welcome back. It's Ian Collins in for Jezza for the remainder of this week. 0344 499 1000. We'll talk to Kinsey Schofield in just a moment. Just a point, by the way, Poppy, on the shortage of public toilets in this country. There's only one for every 15,000 people. Apparently, the lack of loos have left some people scared of being caught short, so they don't go out. I mean, does anybody plot their social life based on the map of public lavatories?
To be fair,
like people with electric cars work out.
Plot my
okay,
social
there's a
life.
charging point there. There's one there.
I don't plot my social life, but I know if I'm having to go on a train journey, I certainly would try and go to a loo that isn't on the train beforehand, because I have, you know, those big doors that kind of revolve around. And
You've got a fear of that thing opening.
No. It's not. It's not that, because I know how to lock it properly. But I have opened it before, and I've seen someone who I imagine was on something just passed out on the ground when I was like on the train. I was like, oh, okay, right. I'm never going to use these again. So there you go. That's
some
Britain.
ticket dodgers sit in the loo, don't they, to avoid the ticket?
Yes.
As if the ticket inspector isn't like onto
hasn't
that.
figured that one out yet.
Yeah.
It doesn't really seem like the
Doesn't need
smartest.
Poirot, does it, to work out that, you know, if you've got limited places to hide on a train.
Yeah, my favourite is when the ticket inspector comes down and you see the person just get up and walk down the train. And you're like, you know that there's not an exit.
That's right, yeah.
The train is going to keep moving till it stops.
You can't
You're
get
not going to be able to escape this one.
Yeah, every one of those. It's rather fascinating. So, the shortage of public toilets is an absolute scandal, apparently, but nobody likes going in them. That's my problem with the train one, with the door, is that it's just going to, even though you press the lock button, somehow when you're in there, it's just going to go bzzzt and make that noise. That's a horrible thought. This from John in Germany. He says, I suffer from several allergies. I'm unable to work. If I couldn't sit around all day on my fat, lazy bum playing video games and eating bargain buckets of KFC, life would be unbearable. Oh, and I have ADHD and gender disorder, and my mum abandoned me when I was 27. The message would be tongue-in-cheek, but my mouth is full of food. Says Robert. John in Germany.
Good.
That's a very good point. It's a very good point. Let's get some detail across the pond. Kinsey Schofield is with us, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered. Morning to you, Kinsey.
Ian, I just want you to know that I have managed to hold my pee the entire flight from LA to London because I don't trust public restrooms. So I understand this debate that you're dealing with over there.
First, even in business class as you travel, Kinsey?
Oh, right. You know, we have the same boss. You know I'm shoved in the back in economy.
Yeah. Are you? Okay. So, the point about that you just raised, actually, that always gets me is, why do Americans call toilets restrooms? Did you ever meet anybody who go, oh, I really need a rest, I'll just nip into a public lab?
Oh, when's the last time you didn't pull out your phone, Ian, and spend a few minutes scrolling in there?
It is a place to scroll, but it's not a place to rest, is it?
Do you want to call it the scroll room?
The restroom. It sounds like some kind of Dickensian tavern. The old restroom. Really?
It's a tavern you could find me in, Ian.
Anytime, yeah, but not on an aeroplane, as it turns out. So, because there is something quite awful, isn't there, about when the seatbelt sign goes off and suddenly there's a queue. There's about 27 people. You're in the aisle, you're reading your book or whatever, and you can see the queue and think, right, if I'm going to go in there, I'm going in there after 27 other people.
You're right. Yeah, that's really just completely unappealing to me.
Yeah, it's completely unappealing. And you do wonder, without getting into too much detail, what the heck do some people do in there? They're in there forever. It's like, be aware that there are 27 other people behind you that want to use this thing. Goodness me. 61% of Brits believe Harry and Meghan should not be allowed to use their Sussex titles for commercial or personal advantage. I mean, as if they would, Kinsey.
Well, I'd love to know what you and Poppy think about this, because you are both Brits, but we did see a lot of this during their Australian tour. Meghan hugging, the victims of a shooting on Bondi Beach, hugging some of their family members and survivors in an outfit that within minutes was available on her app that you can buy, where she receives commission, kneeling in front of children with cancer. And as soon as those images went up on the internet, that same outfit available on this app, and Meghan Markle gets a commission every time you make a purchase. So we saw a lot of them monetizing their titles throughout their Australian tour. But you know, you're there, Poppy's there. I'd be very curious to know where you land on this, because you know, these are your titles. They're not our titles in the States. We think it's why are their children prince and princess? We don't have that here.
Yeah, I mean that's true, Poppy, isn't it? That they are Harry and Meghan's kids have royal titles. And
yeah,
it is extraordinary. Essentially, these are now members of the public. I mean, yes, of course, they have a status and they have a fame, but they aren't, you know, they're meant to have escaped all the royal stuff, apart from when you can flog a dress.
I always think that Meghan Markle has a very specific way of, like, kind of boasting about, you know, we're not like other celebrities, we're slightly different, which is she always covers the children's faces just about in the Instagram photos.
Yeah.
But they're always there. Like, you are still putting your photos of children online, but you're very performatively, like, hiding the faces of the children. I always think that sums up just the sort of person that she is.
That does, yeah, sticking emoji over your kid's face doesn't really cut it, Kinsey, does it? I mean, it's like you are still utilising the whole, look at us, we're a normal family, we don't want for much in life, we're just decent folk who do charity work.
I love you. 2 points about that. One is they do that, while promoting all over the world, they tell people to not post pictures of their children online because it's dangerous. And then they flirt with it. They hint at it by slowly revealing different parts of their children's faces to attract the weirdos. And then posting pictures of children with cancer, posting pictures of teenagers with anorexia, and throughout their Australian trip to elevate their profile. Meanwhile, aren't you jeopardizing the faces of these families that are now exposed to the entire world because they're in your presence at a hospital? I mean, I think that's completely hypocritical. But also, Meghan just released new candles that have Prince Archie's title because they're inspired by the birth of Prince Archie. And so she's not only slowly revealing them on social media, but she's basically monetizing their titles too through her new products.
Sells a bloody candle, for God's sake. I mean, really? They're selling
$60, Ian.
For a candle?
Yes.
I mean, if you need a candle, do you really search out the Meghan Markle regal wick to stick on your whatever that is, on your dinner table or your mantle, wherever you want to put this thing? At what point? Because then your friends would come round, wouldn't they? And they'd say, "Oh, that's a nice candle. What's that?" They go, "Oh, yeah, it's Meghan Markle's." I mean, you wouldn't want to tell somebody that.
That's my Prince Archie. That's my Prince Archie candle. Oh my gosh, how cringe. No, exactly. And I'm a girl's girl. I'm a shopaholic, and I'm at I think you guys call it TK Maxx. I'm in the TK Maxx candle aisle looking for the candle that might have originally been $30, but I'm getting it for $70, or I'm getting it for $7. I'm not spending $60 on something that I'm going to inevitably toss, that it's going to burn. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. I forgot it's called T something else Max, isn't it, in the States?
Yeah, it's TJ Maxx here. We're real different.
What's that all about? I mean, really? I mean, there's got to be a reason for that.
Yeah, well, we'll figure it out. That's our next big investigation together. We'll start our own YouTube channel.
Yeah. We started a harrowing journey that began in Boston, in Lincolnshire, and ended in Boston in the United States. I mean, maybe we'll take it down those kind of lines.
I love that.
We'll do a proper panorama programme, don't you worry. Final one, Kinsey. Prince, well, as he was known, talking to people who don't any longer have titles, Andrew has turned down the FBI's request for an interview, sparking government fears he would sue if he was questioned.
Isn't this wild? So the Sun says the legal fears expressed by the British authorities to them when they were turning down these requests for Andrew to come, just give them information about Jeffrey Epstein, what he knew about Jeffrey Epstein. They appeared to baffle the American side, who responded, "All we want to do is ask some questions." But it just proves to us that Andrew's royal status didn't just open doors for him, it slammed them in investigators' faces. The same privilege tied to the institution appears to have insulated him from the kind of accountability most people would face in an American federal investigation.
Yeah.
And when a member of the royal family can sidestep direct cooperation and rely on those legal buffers, it raises serious questions about whether the institution itself, intentionally or not, shielded him from scrutiny. And I think that it jeopardizes the credibility of the British royal family.
Yeah. It certainly does. Well, I'm sure they're going to keep asking, and I'm sure the former prince will keep saying no. Listen, Kinsey, thank you as ever. We'll speak tomorrow. Kinsey Schofield, host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, with us on the programme. Poppy Coburn is still with us, assistant comment editor over there at the Daily Telegraph. We're talking all things, everything from public toilets to Keir Starmer. What an interesting combination. Didn't think about that when you woke up this morning,
No,
did you,
I
Poppy?
did not. I did not.
We take some curious turns.
What's more
on this
unpleasant to
programme.
think about?
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Mark says on that point, why bother having sinks inside toilets at all, as most people don't wash their hands, and touching the door handle or bar to leave the kazi. Have hand cleanser outside the loo, for goodness sake.
I carry those, those tiny little bottles of
hand cleanser.
Yeah. I couldn't remember the name then. Hand sanitizer, that's the one. I carry those around with me. When people say that they don't wash their hands after going to the toilet, this is precisely why I'm always obsessively cleansing my hands when I get on and off the tube, because there's always someone that sneezes, puts their hand on the.
I know.
Oh God,
I know,
and it's even worse. The idea that when you're touching the. I use my elbow.
Does this happen in the ladies' loos? The
I hope not.
The over keen hand washer, where you get a bloke who's cleaning his hands like he's about to carry out surgery. He's got sleeves rolled right up to doing his elbows, he's got the arms going, he's up there like this.
Before
it's like, Matt, what are you doing in there, man? He looks like he's just changed a tyre or something. How dirty do you think you are?
I have never, ever seen
That's more annoying than people not washing their hands at all.
Well, I'm not, I don't know. I mean, I always assumed that the men's leagues were pretty grim, to be honest with you. Not what I've ever been in one.
It depends where you
Maybe
go,
that's being
but
sexist,
yes, I think, well, every time I say that, there is usually a female that counters it and says, some of the ladies aren't great either. But yeah, men's loos can be pretty horrid places. Yeah. They're not, although the graffiti can be interesting on the doors. We were talking about this in the office. Every now and again, you get, especially on a service station somewhere, someone's just written their phone number on the wall. It's like, what are they expecting to happen here?
Well, yeah, I assume they're not calling out for a friendly chat. That's...
Just say, Mick, 06492, and then there'll be a number. You think, what? And how does that work? How does that play out? Does somebody ring the number and say, hi, Mick?
I saw you in the service station over the A12.
I just saw your number. I thought I'd give you a call. What?
My favourite is, I can only assume that we're being too harsh on men who identify as women who want to go to the ladies' toilet. Have you just considered that they think the ladies' leaves are nicer? Is that really the whole reason they're doing all of this?
Wouldn't
they're putting
that
the
be
wig
great
on and the dress.
if Stonewall just came out and went, all right, OK, we've been rumbled. It was all about the niceness of the loos. Better wallpaper, softer tissue.
No graffiti.
Always so.
People wash their hands.
Mick doesn't leave his phone number on the wall. It might have just been as simple as that. Stay with us, Poppy. More to come. Lots of comment from you. Let's get another voice note on Keir Starmer. This comes from Pete. Morning, Pete.
Keir Starmer. Old Feathers the Penguin. The man who is dead behind the eyes. Nothing there. Is just reading out the speeches that seem to be written 10 hours before, and he's got nothing to ad-lib on except for caught out yet again. He won't resign. He's too arrogant for that. But it's just lie after lie after lie. In fact, I don't think the man knows now how to tell the truth. He's ruined our relationship with the Americans. The man is the worst prime minister this country has ever had, and he should leave office.
And the expenses they waste, millions on cabs, on biscuits even. You know, when you look at the yearly bill of the BBC, it's just waste.
So they spend something like £19 million. That's about $30 million a year on taxes. On cabs.
Kev, did you used to work? You used to work at the BBC.
I've worked at.
What was it like with the expenses there? Could you?
Well, I'll tell you.
Did you have a time of your life?
No, it is a licence to print personal money. I'll tell you that.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk 0344 499 1000. Let's get a voice note on Keir Starmer. This comes from Nick. Morning to you, Nick.
Morning, Ian. It's Nick from Loughborough. I think it's high time in Parliament, in the face of such fearsome and justified opprobrium towards the worst Prime Minister in history, that the protocol where MPs can't call somebody a liar is abandoned, and they should all grow the cojones to say to the Speaker, Mr. Hoyle, this man is a liar.
It's a good point, that the sort of protocols that don't really serve purpose anymore. If somebody has what appears to be demonstrably lied, then why can't you call that out?
I remember a couple of years ago, all the Labour backbenchers said the same thing about Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
They deserve to have a taste of their own medicine. I'm sorry, they were on their high horse a couple of years ago. What's changed? Well, why have we all now got to believe what the Prime Minister's saying? I don't buy it.
What do you think about the toilets in Parliament? Because we're talking about public toilets. There's only one public loo for every 15,000 people. This is in England, so I don't know how Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland fare on this one. Parliamentary loos are a bit nondescript, aren't they? There's not much, you know, there's not the ornateness that you associate with.
A golden toilet.
Yeah, you'd want a bit more gold in there.
Although I have heard, I think there was that very famous, it was probably something the Mail did a few years ago, that someone went around with a swab, was swabbing all the toilets. And they picked up lots of Class A drugs, apparently, in the parliamentary toilets. So
yeah.
There you go. But yeah, no, you're right. They're very plain, very kind of normal. You'd expect them from like a GP surgery, actually, the ones in Parliament.
Well, you've got the newer building, Portcullis House. They have obviously more modern loos there, and then you get into the old stuff where they're a bit more Victorian.
Yeah. Well, if you hear about where the Houses of Parliament was apparently about to fall down because it's so overdue of actually having some repairs, it's a miracle that they can even run a toilet in the first place.
Indeed. So 30 seconds if we can, Poppy. How's this going to pan out later today? Keir Starmer addresses Parliament. Arguably, this is the appearance and performance of his career.
Yeah, and I think, you know, keep an eye out for, does he actually answer the questions? Does he deflect? I think he's going to be trying to repair relationships with his MPs today. But tomorrow, when it's Ollie Robbins' turn to speak, that is really when I think things are going to get heated. So I actually think today is just the kind of warming up to the big, like, blow-up that's going to happen.
Could Ollie Robbins protect the Prime Minister? Not that he's a political appointment. Ollie Robbins worked with Theresa May and goodness knows who else. So.
Yeah. I mean, why would he? He's just been thrown under the bus. If I were him, I'd be like,
very publicly lost the job.
Yeah.
And a very good job at that.
Yeah, humiliated in the process. No, I think if I were him, I'd have my receipts ready.
Indeed. Poppy, we'll see you later in the week. Poppy Coburn with us here on Talk Breakfast. Over to you, 0344 499 1000. We're back after the news headlines at 7 o'clock.
Whether it's the most important one, the Prime Minister, or the most junior minister, lying to the House of Commons is a capital offence and would have to go. And if the officials have lied when they're advising you, they should go.
On the 10th of September, the Prime Minister misled Parliament by saying the full due process was followed. If Mandelson failed the security vetting, full due process was not followed. Misleading Parliament is a resigning offence.
The Ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US.
Going to be across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good morning. Yes, welcome back. Ian Collins in for Jezza for the rest of this week. It is Talk Breakfast. We're absolutely crammed at this end with sizzling delights. What is going on in our country? It is D-Day, of course, for Keir Starmer. Today he'll face the House of Commons for the latest instalment of Who Knew What, When, How and Why. He will clarify that he did not mislead Parliament, why he was apparently the last to know something of such importance, and will he today do the noble thing and resign? Get yourself a big bucket of popcorn and a foot-long hot dog at the ready. The curtain goes up later today. We'll talk to Jack Elson in just a second on this. Meanwhile, the Sharks are indeed circling already. Angela Rayner and Andy Burnham are on the news. They apparently held a secret summit on Friday, no doubt in Salford's Nando's, which has never seen anything quite like it. Clearly, they are weeding the path to power, or more probably when Starmer walks the plank. What is going on there? Reform's Layla Cunningham joins us a little later. Back to take your questions. They're hoping, of course, to do big business on May the 7th. What would you like to ask Reform UK's mayoral candidate later in the programme? And have you got a food intolerance? Do chips bring you out in a rash? Does sugar even send you all giddy and get you howling at the moon, or broccoli give you a compelling urge to want to start gnawing your own face off? Well, if so, you could be in for a bit of a windfall. The number of people getting disability benefits for food intolerance has risen by 500%. Give us the food, give us the allergy, tell us what happens when you eat it or get near it. I mean, peanuts are the big one, obviously. That's dangerous stuff. We all get that. What else is going on in the food intolerance department? 0344 499 1000. Oh, yes, and we're short of public loos in this country. Thoughts on that as well? Not quite sure how we turn that into a debate, but you take the point. Lines are open, 0344 499 1000. You can voice note us there as well, or message 87222. This is Jack Elson, of course, political editor at The Sun, who's with us. Just gone 7 o'clock. Jack, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ian. I have to say as well that the on your last point about the public loos in Parliament, we were just chatting with Poppy. In the new build areas in Portcullis House, they're okay, but in the actual Palace of Westminster, in this old Victorian building, let me tell you, the plumbing is something to be desired. Yes. Someone has to grapple with on a daily basis.
Indeed, you're absolutely right. There's the Portcullis House bit is all right, still quite nice, and it looks very recently built, even though it is quite old now. But in relative terms, it's a new building. But the other, you're right. The plumbing is only overshadowed by the occasional dong from Big Ben.
Yes, and I don't want to put your viewers off their breakfasts or morning coffee, but some of my colleagues have had to grapple with the more parlous state of parliamentary toilets over the years.
Yeah, you do wonder who is. There is something odd because of where the building is and what the building is, that you do find yourself piddling next to some, pretty significant names.
Yeah, you might say that, but I couldn't possibly.
No, well, I can raise you a Geoffrey Howe. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. Why a man was wearing slippers in the toilet, I do not know, but that's a whole other story for the autobiography. Let's get into it then, Jack. I mean, look, in your line of work, in our line of work here, you're over there all the time at Westminster. Days don't come around that often like today. It's pivotal. It's important. Yes, we can talk about having the popcorn ready, but this is absolutely crucial for Keir Starmer's prime ministerial career.
No, you're totally right. And in Westminster, like you said, us journalists who live and breathe politics can be in danger of overstating events, these dramatic days in Westminster. But I think that what happens this afternoon will be pivotal to Keir Starmer's chances of surviving in number 10. Yeah. Not only because, once again, we are dredging up the scandal that was the appointment of Peter Mandelson, but also now it comes down, a lot of it, to process, to who knew what, when, the exact type of thing which Boris Johnson really was taken down for in the end, when you have this absolutely colossal scandal which just has the ability to suck in all manner of people around you. And the thing is for Keir Starmer now, the problem for Keir Starmer is that he's really run out of fall guys to throw under a bus. And he is the one in the firing line now. And I think that is why it is so dangerous. And you can imagine what we're going to see at about 3:30 or whatever it is, Keir Starmer stands up. It's a lot of righteous indignation, a lot of framing from Downing Street and Keir Starmer that it is him versus the civil service and that the officials should have told him. And I've no doubt that they will bring the receipts showing that Ollie Robbins should have told him. The problem, I think, for Number 10 is that the idea that they're trying to frame this as Keir Starmer versus Ollie Robbins. One, what is Ollie Robbins going to say tomorrow when he gets up in front of MPs? You know, their line, which they come with today, could be blown out of the water in less than 24 hours.
That's a very strategic build-up, is it, for Starmer and his team? Because they are going to be trying to second-guess what might happen tomorrow.
You're totally right. And so their defence, they need to know, is absolutely watertight, so that Ollie Robbins doesn't come to the Foreign Affairs Select Committee tomorrow with a big bag of receipts and steamroller everything which they've just said, and then Keir Starmer is in danger of misleading Parliament. But also, Ian, I do think that there is a danger that the narrative which is building up here is one of Starmer and Number 10 versus Ollie Robbins and the civil service, whereas actually, even if Keir Starmer can prove that Ollie Robbins could have told him about this, the questions which the public will ask will be, why were you, who's the leader of our country, so suspiciously incurious about asking these questions when they reared their head last month? You know, why did Keir Starmer, when he was going to the dispatch box for the House of Commons, not go, right, chaps, I'm going to be going to MPs now. This is one of the most serious scandals in modern history. I need to know that everything I'm about to say is absolutely copper-bottomed, watertight, signed, sealed, delivered. Let's make sure that all of our facts in a row. So let's go back to the vetting process. Was it all done properly? Was it? And the fact that that hasn't been done speaks to the wider problem of the Prime Minister, which is that he seems to be a sort of a passenger in lots of the events.
Well, indeed. Well, let's have a listen to Starmer in Parliament in February, because it's quite telling what he says in this clip. Here it is, Jack.
Time and time again, Mandelson completely misrepresented the extent of his relationship with Epstein and lied throughout the process, including in response to the due diligence.
Now, what's interesting about that, Jack, that suggests that the Prime Minister at that stage in February had had a briefing about Mandelson. It seems inconceivable that within a briefing of this seriousness, he just had to fire the ambassador that he'd appointed, that this thing about security vetting would not have come up.
Yes, totally. And it goes back to what he has always been saying, which is that due process was followed. Now, either he comes to the House of Commons today and says that I was misled, I went to the dispatch box and said that due process was followed under the presumption that it was, because that is what I have been told. Clearly now that is wrong and I'm going to correct the record. Or he says that actually due process was followed in regards to Ollie Robbins, was allowed to make this decision. But I disagree with the process. And I think the process should be fundamentally overhauled. Both seem pretty weak excuses, to be honest. And I think that the Prime Minister will come under all types of questioning today. Why when journalists raised the prospect that Peter Mandelson had failed his vetting, was this not properly drilled into by Downing Street, who would have then obviously found that the journalists were correct and he did not pass the vetting, and it was just unilaterally overruled by the civil service. But the fundamental question here, and we can get dragged down in the weeds, and actually in this regards, the weeds are important because it goes to the heart of what the Prime Minister's been saying. The fundamental question which people will ask is, why did you appoint this man in the first place? And that is why I think that Keir Starmer today can come and with a big bag of receipts and say that Ollie Robbins should have told him. It is minute detail in the broader picture of what the public will see from this, which is that Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, appointed a good friend of the world's most notorious paedophile to be our US ambassador. And that is the bottom line. And that is why this scandal is cutting through really like no scandal I've seen since Partygate. The public don't follow every cough and spit of politics, and rows about donations and personnel often pass them by. But this one is so damaging because it is so easy for the public to see gross incompetence at the heart of this, and it's coming back into a prime minister who, let's not forget, was so quick to rightly prosecute all of the elements of Tory sleaze when he was leading the opposition. The problem is, Ian, that the higher you get on the high horse, the more you have to fall.
Indeed. Well, on that very point, let's go back to 2022, because Boris Johnson was on the ropes at that point. Keir Starmer was leader of the opposition. Let's have a reminder of what Mr Starmer said back then.
Look, there are only two possible explanations. Either he's trashing the ministerial code, or he's claiming he was repeatedly lied to by his own advisers and that he didn't know what was going on in his own house and his own office. Come off it. He really does think that it's one rule for him and another rule for everyone else.
I mean, there's always that comment, there's always a clip, and that is the clip. Does Starmer's entire premiership hang on today's statement, Jack, and partly based on that kind of morality point as well?
Well, I think that it is just crucial, isn't it? Because Keir Starmer essentially won an election not based on any particular policy. It wasn't his economic record, or it wasn't his promises to the country on local government reform or the rest of it. It was basically that he was seen as the antidote to 14 years of Tory sleaze, chaos, infighting, and the rest of it. He was the self-styled Mr. Rules who would restore order, calm, dignity back to a pretty febrile few years. And what we've seen since July 24th, really, is anything but that. You think about all manner of sagas, rows, sackings that we've had in that time, culminating with this scandal surrounding Peter Mandelson, which is just absolutely extraordinary. And so, yes, what Keir Starmer comes and says today will be pivotal to his not just long-term future, but short-term future. And the issue is, I think, is that this scandal, even if he survives today, it just does not seem to be going away whatsoever. You know, it is the scandal that he cannot shake. Don't forget that even if he gets past today unscathed, we still have the release of the second tranche of Mandelson documents to be released in the coming weeks. And that could be absolutely box office, because that is going to be, the tail of the tape of what Peter Mandelson, Keir Starmer's senior advisors were texting each other, not just during the appointment process, but afterwards as well. So, you could have a situation where Keir Starmer, escapes with a flesh wound today, but it could be death by 1,000 text messages when they're released in a few weeks' time.
Here's what I don't get, though, Jack. I mean, even if you put aside, and it can't be put aside because it's all significant and crucial, but, who said what, who should have known, who might have known, and we were talking to Poppy about this earlier, of course, there is that interesting distinction in Westminster circles. What might have been said to somebody is not the same as something that was written down. So you can claim with absolution that, no, nobody told me this, because there's no paper trail of it, but a gazillion conversations might have happened in corridors and over a pint or whatever. But even if you put all of the Westminster stuff aside, there is one, I see this as a sort of an overarching lethal blow to Starmer, and that is the David Maddox phone call to Downing Street 7 months ago, asking, is it true that I'm hearing Peter Mandelson has failed top-tier security vetting. What's your comment on that? So that's it, right? I mean, they knew because a journalist asked them about it. So even if they didn't know at that point, unthinkable, but even if they didn't, they did when Maddox made that phone call.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem really quite bizarre, the fact that when a senior political journalist got in touch with Downing Street to raise something potentially so alarming and damaging to the government, they didn't at least check this with the person that signed off his vetting, aka Ollie Robbins. Had he actually failed this vetting? They seemed to just stick to the line that due process was followed. Now, again, it goes back to that point. The dichotomy there is appalling. Either they lied to David Maddox and knew that he'd failed his vetting, or they didn't know that he hadn't passed his vetting, but were just so seemingly staggeringly incurious to have a look into it.
Yes.
But also that you can be accused of gross negligence. So neither is a good look for the Prime Minister. And I'm sure that today that he would say that he's been let down by civil service. He might have been let down by some of his staff who hadn't kicked this up the chain. But the problem is, in the eyes of the public, is that this goes to the very top. And it goes to the very top, one, because the Prime Minister sets the tone and the pace in Downing Street and what sort of culture his government runs. But also, more damaging, in the clips we've just shown from Keir Starmer in opposition, he was the one saying to Boris Johnson, how on earth does he not know what is going on in the walls of Downing Street? Yeah. How does he not know what is going on with his staff? And why are you now trying to blame your staff from something which you should take responsibility for? And those words will come back to bite Keir Starmer, not just today, in the weeks and months ahead, because all of this stuff goes to the top, and the Prime Minister is ultimately the one in the firing line.
Do you think, Jack, there are people within Starmer's own team or in Number 10 that want him to fail now? Get it cleared out, start again?
I don't think so, only because, most of them are loyal to Keir Starmer. The people who actually work with him inside Downing Street, they know really that their political careers also live and die with the Premier at the time. Often what you have is a big clear out of Number 10 staff when a new Prime Minister comes in, who then appoints their own people. And so, I do think that they are loyal to him. They are, we were speaking to them yesterday, they are bullish about today because they think that their receipts and the documents they have will disprove Ollie Robbins' argument that he couldn't have come and told them. In fact, last night what we saw, quite extraordinarily, was them preemptively publish legal advice which shows that civil servants can inform ministers of the results of vetting. So I'm sure that we'll see that argument played out today. I think the problem for them is that it is bigger than just a row between Starmer and a civil servant. It is about Keir Starmer's judgment in appointing Peter Mandelson in the first place, and then the subsequent comments that he made, which seemed to show a staggering lack of incompetence and curiosity.
So he can survive today, in all probability, but can he survive after May the 7th, Jack? Final question.
Do you know what? I actually think he will survive for a few, at least, months to come. Everyone knows that May the 7th is going to be a bloodbath for Labour. Clearly, that is going to hit home even more to MPs when they see their good friends, councillors, lose their seat in the hundreds and possibly thousands. I do think at the moment, though, there is not really a viable alternative to Keir Starmer, who the Labour Party want to bank on. If there was, they would have done it by now. Angela Rayner, Andy Burnham, Wes Streeting, all of them got their flaws in either being unpopular with the parliamentary party, the membership, the wider country, tax affairs. Andy Burnham doesn't even have a route back into Parliament at the moment. And so I would say for the time being, he probably limps on incredibly damaged. But, the next tranche of Mandelson files that come out could be a real killer blow for him.
Just very briefly, I mentioned it earlier, Angela Rayner and Andy Burnham apparently tucking into a Nando's in Salford. I just made the last bit up, but wherever it was they went, secret meetings taking place. There are several characters on manoeuvres right now, Jack.
Yeah, and this is what we often see when prime ministers are on the ropes. We see orchestration, we see secret plots, back smoky rooms is often is part of the course at this point. Listen, Andy Burnham and Angela Rayner, along with Wes Streeting in the mix, clearly breathing down Keir Starmer's neck to be his replacement. Whether or not those two manage to hatch out some sort of Gordon Brown, Tony Blair-esque compromise to unite the soft left of the party remains to be seen. But interesting times indeed.
Indeed. Jack, have a great day. It's not going to be dull. We'll speak again very, very soon. Jack Elsom, he is, of course, political editor at The Sun. His ear is firmly to the ground on all of this. Later today, Starmer makes that appearance in Parliament. Ain't going to be dull. It's not going to be dull. Even if you don't normally follow politics, then be here on Talk. We'll have the entire thing covered throughout the course of the day. And, of course, the speech by the Prime Minister, followed by, it's the subsequent questions. I mean, we know what the speech is going to say. I didn't know, they didn't tell me, they should have told me, and no one, I was in the dark, and I was sucking my thumb in the corner of a room crying, and goodness knows what else he's going to say. But it's going to be those questions. Can the killer blow come from Kemi Badenoch? Will it be down to Ed Davey? Could Nigel Farage pitch up with that real curveball? Watch the entire thing. Everything covered right here on Talk. On the issue of Keir Starmer, let's get a voice note. This comes from Sean. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Ian. Sean from Grimsby here. So the Prime Minister today is going to go to the Commons and set the record straight. Yet we already know everything that he's going to say. He's going to say, it wasn't my fault, it was somebody else's fault. I didn't know. We're going to have a full inquiry. No stone will be left unturned. We'll follow the process. Might throw in a bit of breakfast clubs and probably say something about reform. You know, in any other walk of life, in any other job, this man will be sacked for being an incompetent fool, and he should go quickly because he's absolutely terrible. Great show, Ian.
The world is on fire. Russia, Iran, China, conflicts brewing in all of their different regions. They're not waiting. But here in Britain, our armed forces are underfunded, they're undermanned, and they're underprepared. And nobody in government wants to talk about it. Well, we do. I'm Philip Ingram, and I spent my career in the world of intelligence, military planning, strategic planning, and unfortunately, conflict. This is Talk War, and this is where we analyse the conflicts shaping our world.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good morning, welcome back. 26 minutes after 7 o'clock. Ian Collins in for Jezza for the rest of this week. This comes from Angus, who's talking about food intolerances. I have a theory that it's mostly the younger generation who suffer from these afflictions. When I was growing up, we had none of these spray disinfectants on every surface. It was probably done once a week. The older generations don't have many intolerances. Too much disinfectant is the problem. It's quite hard to work out because you get a bathroom spray, then you get a kitchen spray, then you get one for the living. Is that all? That's the same spray, isn't it? Come on. It's just got a different label on the front. And Don in Chelmsford says the lack of public toilets has been made worse by the removal of red public phone boxes. That's probably true. Who the heck decide? I mean, people used to pee in phone boxes. How bad does it get? I can actually top that, because I remember years ago, before they rebuilt where we're sitting here now in lovely London Bridge, where the whole station has been reimagined and rebuilt, and the Shard is there, and our lovely building here is there. Before that, it was a bit of a knackered old station. I did come back from a night out once, and as I approached the station, I saw a man having a wee in a ticket machine. I'm not kidding you. You know that little flap where your ticket pops out? Yeah, that was his. He thought that was a urinal. Filthy swine. And we're Britain, nobody said a word. Nobody said, if he'd have dodged the fare, it would have been, oh, you can't do that. He just weeded a ticket machine, mate. On to more pressing and important matters. The United States intercepts and seizes an Iranian-flagged cargo ship, according to Donald Trump, and Iran warns it will soon retaliate after US forces seized that cargo ship. What is the latest on this? Sean Byrne is with us, former fighter pilot, now military analyst. I can't keep up with this, Sean, and good morning to you, by the way. You know, 1 minute it's open, the Strait of Hormuz, then it's closed, then it's open again. My Tesco Sunday hours are more reliable than this strait. What is open longer as well, for that matter? What is going on? What's the current state of play over there?
Yeah, Ian, I mean, it was a bit bizarre, wasn't it? That the Iranians closed the strait, America's tried to open it again, then Iran opened it, and that led to America keeping it closed with their blockade. Yeah. Now it's firmly closed, both the blockade in place and the Iranians have closed it. I think this latest move is just interesting about the Tuska, which is this Iranian freight cargo vessel being intercepted by the US Marine Corps off the Tripoli. It's almost like the Iranians have stage managed this because they clearly are not responding well to President Trump's threats. They know the ceasefire is due to end Tuesday evening. They are clearly not prepared to be bullied into these talks. And by putting one of their cargo vessels into harm's way, forcing the Americans to do something militarily, the Americans have effectively escalated. It does appear that each morning when President Trump gets up, issues a tirade of announcements on social media, the Iranians just do some strategic planning. And it seems like they've got America exactly where they want them at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that the focus of this war began with, you know, a possible nuclear capability or making sure they didn't have one, etc. Now the Iranians seem to have something even greater than that, and that is the Strait of Hormuz, which has become an incredibly valuable bargaining chip within the system here. But the Americans say they're having none of it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the Strait of Hormuz is geographically it is very difficult to navigate if you've got a belligerent one side or the other. And despite the fact, I mean, I think history books have written, Ian, that despite America being a global superpower and the military operation has been conducted over Iran with devastating effect, there's no doubt that America has amazing military capability, decimated Iran's Army, Navy and Air Force. But Iran is not stupid. We used to war game this when I was in the military, and Iran's had 35 years to repair its defensive Strait of Hormuz, and that combination of Chinese ship missiles, drones, ballistic missiles, fast patrol boats packed full of explosives and mines means that even now, even after the hammering they've been taking, they still control the Strait of Hormuz and also potentially the Bab al-Mandab Straits across the other side of the water, which is another 25% of global shipping. And before we even get going, they've not yet really conducted interstate terrorism, which of course would actually take the war onto American soil. Yeah. So to be frank, it does feel like they've got a lot of cards, unlike what President Trump claimed.
What is your assessment, Sean, of this ceasefire? Again, it's quite hard to keep up, isn't it? Is there a ceasefire? Is it a partial ceasefire? Does it apply to all elements of this war? I'm thinking about Lebanon as well as Iran. And when is it over? And what happens when it's over? There's about 3 questions in there, but talk us through it, Sean.
Well, thanks, Ian. The first, there are 2 different ceasefires. You know, the ceasefire, 10-day ceasefire that's in the Lebanon at the moment. To be frank, that was imposed. The Iranians imposed it on Hezbollah. Trump imposed it on Netanyahu. That's a very, very fragile ceasefire. And just to illustrate that, you know, Prime Minister Netanyahu's allowed to operate within the terms of that ceasefire in self-defense, but he claims the whole operation into southern Lebanon is an act of self-defense, and therefore that continues really unabated. I think the ceasefire between Iran and America, which is due to end at the end of Tuesday night, is looking incredibly fragile at the moment. But the only saving grace here is that both sides, both Iran and America, are motivated to bring this conflict to an end. I think what Iran's doing, I think Trump claimed that Iran is much better negotiating than our fighter. Are much better at preparing the ground for these potential talks. I wouldn't be at all surprised if there'll be last-minute brinkmanship, America travelling to potentially Islamabad for the talks, a slight delay in the ceasefire, but both sides are motivated to make it work. It's just that President Trump probably needs to shut his mouth for 24 hours just to give the diplomats a chance to forge some sort of peace deal.
It's not turned out, though, as we all kind of imagine it. I mean, this was meant to be, you know, a wholesale regime change. Everything, you know, the word Ayatollah wouldn't exist in Tehran anymore. They'd all be gone. Pahlavi or whoever was going to be in there. The place would become a very secular, modern country, eventually building up to look like it once could have been. None of that has happened. I mean, the regime are essentially still there, like a few different faces, and arguably the new head honcho is sort of dying by instalments, it seems, at the moment, who's been severely injured, but the same faces, the same ideology, nothing's changed.
Ian, if I asked you a rhetorical question, you know, how good has the West ever been at doing regime change? And the answer is very poor. The Iranian regime is a hydra. Yeah. You can take off various heads, and yes, Ayatollah Khomeini, we may judge, was a horrible person, did horrible things. But actually, by killing him and a whole lot of his family, you've been left with Mushtaba, his son, who potentially is pretty badly injured, but is also full of vengeance. That is not exactly the way to get a more complicit, more compliant regime in place. I think naively, there'll be history books written about this, Ian, but many of my military colleagues believe that having gone into Venezuela and plucked out Maduro and really over a very short, sharp shot, potentially delivered success, that President Trump potentially ignored the military advice and just went, I can do the same. I'm going to take out the leadership. There'll be an uprising. I have the only president to go and do that. Well, how wrong could he be?
Indeed. Sean, thank you. Great to have you on again. Good to see you again as well. We'll speak soon. Sean Bell, former fighter pilot, now military analyst, with us here on the programme. 0344 499 1000. Back to Keir Starmer. Paul's in Bexhill-on-Sea, says, morning, Ian. Who exactly can sack Keir Starmer? It's an interesting question. What tends to happen if you look back at, I mean, Thatcher being, I suppose, I know this goes back a long time, nobody can really sack them. But ultimately, he could be unelected or not re-elected in his own constituency in an election. There could be that. But in the immediate term, what tends to happen is that those around the Prime Minister seek counsel with the Prime Minister, and one by one, and this happened literally like this with Thatcher, in they go for a meeting and they explain, Prime Minister, you can't carry on. You have not got the support of this cabinet. And you need, you know, 3 or 4 of those names to go in, the big hitters, Foreign Secretary, Home Secretary, Treasury, etc., Chancellor. And that's it, really. So that's essentially it. But there isn't an overarching figure, unless someone's going to tell me there's a bit of parliamentary rules and regs that I've never read, that could go in and say, I'm sorry, Prime Minister, your time is up. Get out. Not that I'm aware of. Georgina is down in London on Starmer and all things related to the current events. Georgina, what have you got for us? Good morning.
Well, good morning, Ian. I mean, one thing that we have found out for certain over the last few days is that Keir Starmer is morally bankrupt, and he will do whatever it takes to save his own skin, including sacrificing anyone in his cabinet who he thinks will make a suitable scapegoat. I mean, I think Ollie Robbins definitely fell on his own sword as a show of loyalty to Keir Starmer, and Starmer's more than happy for him to do that, even after he stated that he would never let his cabinet take the fall if things went wrong in his premiership.
Well, he had a right royal pop at Boris, more than a right royal pop at Boris Johnson over this. I mean, it's so similar, the circumstances around this. It's quite haunting, and yet today I would imagine he's going to tell a very different story.
Well, it's a mirror image of the Boris Johnson debacle. You know, Keir Starmer's shown himself in time and time again to be unsuitable for the position of Prime Minister. He's indecisive, he's arrogant, he doesn't listen to the electorate, and he is addicted to power. As well as being a pathological liar, a traitor, he's fundamentally flawed right to the core. What more reason do we need to get rid of this little cockroach? This government has given the opposition numerous occasions to call them to account for the corrupt actions, but every time Starmer has slimed his way out of the line of fire with his legal jargon and lawyer tactics, never answering a direct question and using the art of deflection or answering a question with a question. He's a human rights lawyer, Ian. He has never had the capability to be a Prime Minister. He's even disrespected Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House of Parliament, which was a show of total disrespect and disregard for governmental rules. He's an arrogant, narcissistic, self-righteous little man who thinks his above the law or the rules of government. He thinks he's untouchable. And even now, he thinks he's going to come out of this smelling of roses. And terrifyingly, Ian, knowing Keir Starmer, even after all the former scandals and this diabolical situation regarding the appointing of Mandelson, he probably will. I want to go in there and drag him out of number 10 by the seat of his pants. I'm getting that angry now.
I could get it, and I hear it. Georgina. Great call as ever. Thank you. Georgina down in London. 0344 499 1000. Voice notice there as well. Here comes one from Laura on Starmer and Ollie Robbins and all things related to what the heck is going on down there at the moment. Morning to you, Laura.
Morning, Ian. Morning, Poppy. Laura in Wiltshire. Ollie Robbins is telling the truth. He was not allowed to tell the Prime Minister about Mandelson failing security, in which case I don't understand why he is in trouble and is having to resign and be given a massive taxpayer-funded payoff. Even if you take it at face value that the Prime Minister says nobody did tell him, why has Ollie Robbins had to resign? I just don't understand. Maybe I'm being very dim. Anyway, great show.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Good morning. 0344 499 1000. Norman in Hertfordshire says, morning, Mr. Collins. I was wondering why Starmer seems to be a Teflon Prime Minister. No past Prime Ministers seem to have survived as many scandalous scenarios as Starmer has. Nothing seems to stick to him. One of the problems, when I genuinely believe this, one of the problems that we have with this Labour government, not exclusively this Labour government, but certainly they've got a PhD in this, is that their original reason for coming into power was very simple. We aren't the Conservatives. They genuinely thought, I mean, it's a wholly stupid position. We don't need a plan. We don't need a philosophy. We just need to not be the Conservatives. And they thought that would be all right. The second problem they have, which feeds into, I think, Norman's point that he raises, is that when they lie, it's different to when a Tory lies. We are different people. We are notably more morally savvy and switched on people in the ethics department. We don't do, so if we do something bad, it was just an accident because look, we're socialists, so you know, therefore we're good. And I think there is a belief, almost a God-given belief that some of these characters have, that actually life is dandy on the left, because if you do something wrong, you just, it's a bit like kind of religion in that respect. You can then say, well, I prayed to God and I was given absolution or whatever. I went to confession. You know, you've got to, your political position is your get out of jail free card. And they really believe it. And they really believe it. Well, couldn't possibly be me. When Boris did it, Boris was just a fool. He was a clown. He was, bankrupt morally. But when I do it, it's just an error. There was some paperwork. It was a big problem, Let's get a voice note on Starmer from Tristan. Morning, Tristan.
Starmer should be on trial for the policies that have failed. The reason why businesses won't invest and employ people. The reason why businesses are going bust. But instead, he's on trial for lies. And the thing is he never takes any accountability. He never takes any responsibility. He's just going to lie and lie and lie and say, oh, it's not my fault, it's not my fault. There's someone that said previously that I never get rid of my staff, and that's what he's doing. He's getting rid of his staff, and all for so everyone else is the fall guy for him. An absolute total disgrace of a man. Total disgrace.
And that is Tristan, thank you for that. That was a great voice note, and that is reflected by so many people getting in touch. Of course, again, the defence has begun. Only yesterday, Liz Kendall, Cabinet Secretary, was out doing the rounds, very defensive of Keir Starmer, saying that, he would never have appointed Mandelson, if he'd have known this kind of stuff. I mean, this is just hogwash. Let's have a listen to what Liz Kendall said yesterday.
If the Prime Minister had known that UK security vetting had not cleared him, the appointment would have been withdrawn. It wouldn't have mattered how close that was to the President's inauguration or any of that.
That's easy to say that now.
But I believe that because there is no way that the Prime Minister would have continued with it had he known the facts that he knows now.
And you can say that now. But my question is here, when the Prime Minister stood up after months of controversy around this appointment, having promised the country he would get to the bottom of everything that happened, having been forced by opposition parties to say that he would publish everything, had he not bothered to check what had happened with his security clearance when he stood up and told the country that it had given him clearance for the role?
And that's because he was given this, what's called developed vetting status.
Well, let's have a listen and a reminder of what Keir Starmer said at that this was a press conference back in February on Peter Mandelson being cleared for the role.
There was then, I should add, security vetting carried out independently by the security services, which is an intensive exercise that gave him clearance for the role, and you have to go through that before you take up the post.
Well, he went through it and failed it. Let's speak to Lord Clive Soley, Labour peer. Clive, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Nice to have you with us. I mean, this is, whatever way you slice this one, it's a bit of a mess. Can Keir Starmer wriggle out of this one this afternoon?
Well, it's certainly a bit of a mess. I can't do that.
We're all in agreement on that point.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Look, my view is, yes, this is going to be sorted out. Parliament's got to do its processes. That's very important because people need confidence in the system. And clearly, something has gone badly wrong. You don't need to have a degree in politics to know that. But I would say, and it's quite important, this, I think it does need to be sorted out without people throwing around allegations of lying before you know about the truth on it. We do need to know that, and that's why the process in Parliament is so important. So that's where I'm at. I think, personally, my view is that Starmer's done a very good job on the war in Iran, but clearly he has problems here at home, and and this is one of the biggest, so it's got to be sorted.
These are, I mean, you say problems, but these are of a significant magnitude, aren't they? And even if we, if we gave Keir Starmer the benefit of the doubt and said, OK, he didn't know anything about this, and this is becoming, even from a Labour position, Clive, you must, I mean, it's quite inconceivable that he knew, I mean, even down to a journalist phoning Downing Street 7 months ago and saying, we're hearing on good authority that Peter Mandelson did not pass vetting. I mean, surely that in itself, even if you forget all, what Ollie Robbins did say or didn't say and what the Permanent Secretary should have advanced to say, even if you put that to one side, they got a phone call from a journalist saying, hey, what's going on? Your man didn't pass vetting. Care to comment on that? Starmer knew.
Well, I don't know that that's true. You see, I think you have to be careful here about jumping to conclusions about lying. I agree it's got all the signs of remarkably bad cock-up, but I don't think it follows automatically that it's lying. I've always been very careful in my 40 years in politics not to accuse people of lying until I've got hard evidence. And as you all know, you can't accuse people of lying in either House of Parliament because we preserve our democratic structures and standards. We don't want to follow Donald Trump down the road they followed in the United States. It undermines democracy. So let the Parliament do its job today and tomorrow, and it will do both. And remember, Ollie Robbins will get his say too, and that's very important, actually. You'll have to listen to what he says with care. But then I think people and you yourselves in journalism and so on will have to make your judgments. But my guess is that this is cock-up rather than conspiracy.
But I mean, it's cock-up of such a magnitude that it makes certain people untenable, surely. And the Prime Minister is then in a position where he has to say, look, those around me don't trust me enough with pretty key information. I mean, this was an ambassadorial role, arguably the best of all ambassadorial roles that required some real thought behind who you promote. It was already controversial that Mandelson was going to get this, that Mandelson was going to be offered this job to begin with. And then, of course, as the process went on, nobody in number 10 was even curious to say to the Foreign Office, how did the security vetting go?
Well, it's odd, I agree. And I've made this point before on your programme, I think, is that personally I would not have appointed Peter Mandelson if I had had any say in the matter at all. That's because I know him. He's actually a very capable guy, but he's got a fatal flaw. And it is this tendency to go his own way, particularly with, when he's dealing with rich, powerful men. It's a terrible failing. And as I said, Shakespeare could have written a brilliant tragedy about him. But we're not in that ball game. What's got to happen is the parliamentary process has got to be followed, and then if people, including the Parliamentary Labour Party, feel he's not up to the job, they'll have to take the necessary action. But I actually don't think that follows, because I do think, and I notice you didn't come back on this in a sense, but I do think his conduct of the management of relations with the United States and over Iran is profoundly important. Very important, and more important than the Mandelson cock-up. That doesn't mean it can be excused or brushed under the carpet. It certainly doesn't mean that. But it does mean there's an element of we've got to keep these things in proportion. Being Prime Minister is a tough old job, and you will make some stupid mistakes at times.
You've been around in politics for a long time, Clive. You're a very respected voice. People listen to you. Have you managed to get a word with any of the salient players in any of this? Mandelson, Mr. Starmer, Ollie Robbins?
No, I don't know.
You wake up to a voicemail from Peter this morning or anything?
No, I haven't. I have to tell you, well, I think I retired from politics now, and I do have a very minor local role, but I don't do anything nationally, so I haven't been on the phone to anyone at all about this or anything like it. It's just, this is just my own judgment from a lot of experience. That's all I can say.
On that point, Clive, thank you. Lord Clive Soley, Labour peer, thank you to you. 0344 499 1000. I am hearing a lot of defence of Keir Starmer from Labour people saying, well, he's dealt with the Iran war very well. Well, I mean, that's a judgment call, isn't it? I don't think he's dealt with the special relationship with the United States very well. In fact, we pretty much no longer have one. It's been completely thrown in the bin over the last couple of months. That's not a good picture. Dealt with the Iran war. I don't know what he dealt with. I mean, other than saying, we're not getting involved, even though we are, whether we like it or not, a bit involved. What's this Starmer brilliance that's been, I hear it constantly from Labour people. Oh, he's been great on the Iran war. Has he? He's great on the international stage. Is he? Doing what? Being photographed again with Macron. He sees Macron more often than he sees his wife, for goodness sake. They're forever having a photo op somewhere in the Alps, over there in Paris, a powwow in Germany, in the United States. You name it. Are they brothers or something? 0344 499 1000. This comes in from John in Paul, who says, my take on Slippery Starmer is he will not resign the Prime Ministership. He's become addicted to power, free travel and everything in between. Like a true dictator, he will lie, scream, shout, blame his way to stay in power. Let's see if I'm wrong. People like him feel no shame. And again, thank you, John. I'll come back to what I said. They feel no shame because they genuinely believe Well, I couldn't possibly be lying. Look at me. I'm a left-wing politician. We don't lie. The wicked Tories do that. We're the good people. We're the good guys. They believe this shizzle. They genuinely think they're on the side of right. Their moral compass is sound. They sleep well at night. My socialism will protect me like some kind of superpower, like a gilded sword or a shield. It's always going to be there to pull out the bag anytime you need it. Me? Lie? Really? Keir Starmer? Left-wing Prime Minister? Of course I don't lie. They probably don't even see it in that way either. And, of course, in Parliament, you can't use the word lying. That's not very parliamentary. Maybe it's time that particular rule was removed. 0344 499 1000. We'll have more from you on the way in a few moments' time. Loads of voice notes, loads of comment coming through. Some great guests, Layla Cunningham with us a little bit later. We've got some lighter-hearted stories as well, which we'll crowbar in too. Keep it here. Lines are open. This is Talk.
Why have they got exclusive rights to the rainbow?
I used to think the pride flag used to look cool when it was just a rainbow, and now it looks so ugly.
But yeah, well, why have they got
why
can't we have the
brown and
rainbow?
black to
Yeah,
a
but why
rainbow?
can't we have the rainbow? Why have they got to have it?
Or why don't you do planks next week wearing a rainbow jacket? Go on.
Well, yeah, I think I will. I think I will. Let's move.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back. Ian Collins in for Jezza for the remainder of this week. 5 to 8. Some breaking news. A 17-year-old boy and a 19-year-old man have been arrested over the arson attack at Kenton United Synagogue in Harrow. This was around about midnight on Sunday. In addition to that, police are protecting us from synagogue attacks. Aren't protecting us from synagogue attacks, say Jewish leaders. Let's get a word with Stephen Silverman, Director of Investigations and Enforcement of the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. Well, here we are again, Stephen. I think the last time we spoke, we used that phrase, you know, these aren't sadly surprising that we're in this kind of narrative, and not a lot of faith in the police protecting the Jewish community. What do you say on that point?
Let's be very clear about this. What we are witnessing unfolding now is the result of the failure of multiple organisations and institutions to understand that hateful, violent speech will turn eventually into hateful, violent acts. And so those who are complicit in this include industry regulators who have dismissed expressions of violent anti-Semitism by some of their members as freedom of expression, university administrators who have stood by and allowed endless protests on their campuses that demonize Jewish identity and intimidate Jewish students, and some media outlets who eagerly amplify the propaganda of terrorist groups. The police, who for 2.5 years have stood by and watched as mobs have incited hatred against Jewish people while simultaneously screaming their support for terrorist groups. The CPS, whose prosecution rate of anti-Semitic hate crime has now been proven to be wretchedly low. And of course, the government, who have it in their power to sort out this mess, and who have offered only words and no meaningful action whatsoever.
Indeed. Let's have a listen. I'm going to play you this clip, Stephen, from the Met Police. Here it is.
But I want to come back to the point about thugs for hire. People who commit criminal acts of intimidation on behalf of others for what they think will be easy money. DAC Evans and I can stand here today and be absolutely clear, 100% clear, because we have led the teams that have seen people responsible for acts like those now serving lengthy prison sentences, and it is those teams who are working today to find those responsible for these acts. To those who are at all tempted, let me tell you again, it is a mug's game.
Well, that sort of slightly underplays it. It's a mug's game. It's far more serious, of course, than that, Stephen. Thugs for hire, which one has to reasonably say, well, who is hiring the thugs? Counter-terrorism police investigating whether Iran are playing a part in this, which takes this into a whole more disturbing sphere.
Look, I mean, the issue is we are not getting to grips with the people who are encouraging and whipping up these thugs. We are looking at radical left extremism and Islamist extremism and a toxic alliance between the two. They hate Jews, they hate the West. That is what is driving this, and no one is coming to grips with it. No one is even really naming it as the problem. And until we do, this is just going to keep happening.
Is there a sense then that, I mean, the Jewish community, which is, we've said many times, is very small in this country. There's always been a curious and an ugly free pass on anti-Semitism. I think we can all agree on that. I've scratched my head. I don't know why this happens, but it certainly seems to have been the case. When it comes to our politicians, we've heard there from the police. Do you think this government seriously have the backs of Jewish people?
No, and our polling shows that. Of course not. It's no good the Prime Minister standing in front of TV cameras time and time again and saying how he will not tolerate anti-Semitism when he does nothing to show that he will not tolerate anti-Semitism. It's no good him standing there and saying that anti-Semitism has no place in this country when it is now deeply entrenched in this country to a level that I don't think any of us would have been believed possible a decade ago. This government needs to actually back up those words with action. And the longer they leave it, the tougher and more determined that action is going to have to be.
Indeed. They've been absolutely woeful, disturbingly so on this. You're bang on. Stephen, thank you. Nice to see you again as well. Stephen Silverman, Director of Investigations and Enforcement, the campaign against anti-Semitism. 0344 499 1000. We'll take comments from you on that as well. You can message 87222. It's Ian Collins in for Jezza on Talk Breakfast. The time 8 o'clock. Let's get the latest news headlines.
This is a scandal, as you say. If the Prime Minister's knowingly lied, any minister, whether it's the most important one, the Prime Minister, or the most junior minister, lying to the House of Commons is a capital offence and would have to go. And if the officials have lied when they're advising you, they should go.
On the 10th of September, the Prime Minister misled Parliament by saying the full due process was followed. If Mandelson failed the security vetting, full due process was not followed. Misleading Parliament is a resigning offence.
The Ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
It was accepted that the process was going to be
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, good morning. Welcome back. 5 minutes after 8 o'clock. It is the home of common sense. You listen to Ian Collins in for Jezza for the rest of this week. Bit of a D-Day for Keir Starmer over there in the House of Commons, facing lots of questions. The latest instalment of who knew what, when, how and why. He will clarify that he did not mislead Parliament, we know that. Why he was apparently the last to know something of such importance. Will he today do the noble thing and resign? Get yourself a bucket of popcorn and a foot-long hot dog. Curtain is up later this afternoon. Meanwhile, the Sharks are circling. There's quite a lot of them been circling for a while these days. This time, Angela Rayner and Andy Burnham are on manoeuvres. Apparently, they met for a secret summit on Friday. Apparently, Salford's Nando's had never seen the like before. Clearly, they are weeding the path to some kind of power, or more probably, when Keir Starmer walks the plank. Layla Cunningham is with us a little later as well, taking your questions. Later, of course, is Reform UK's mayoral candidate for London. And do you have a food intolerance? Do chips bring you out in a rash? That kind of thing. Apparently, you could be in for a windfall. The number of people getting disability benefits for food intolerance has risen by 500%. What the heck is going on out there? Let's meet with Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. Isabel, good morning.
Good morning, Ian. How are you?
Very good, and slightly... Is it wrong to be... Journalistically, there are days when you think, oh, it's another Christmas day. Today is sort of one of them, really, because today and tomorrow we have Starmer in the House of Commons, Ollie Robbins tomorrow at the Select Committee. I mean, it's all happening. What are we going to get today? What is your projection, you've sat there in the press gallery for years, you've watched these things unfold. Starmer's never going to show up and say, I've read everything, I've looked at everything, bye, I'm gone. That's not going to happen.
Absolutely zero chance of that. I think what we can expect is yet another run through of all these other people are to blame for my ignorance of the reality. It's just it's sort of very performative. It's a piece of theatre. He knows he's got to go and make that statement, but the idea that he's somehow going to take responsibility and voluntarily step down is absolutely for the birds. Yeah. So I don't think it'll end any of the questions. There will be questions afterwards, and we can watch Keir Starmer do exactly what he does in Prime Minister's questions, and that has become such a source of frustration for MPs. And indeed, we saw boil over last week when the Speaker had to remind him that this is Prime Minister's question, not everyone else's questions. So I think it's going to be more of the same. I think tomorrow is almost more important, actually, and less predictable, because you've got that very, very senior diplomat, Ollie Robbins, who has been sacked, basically, for his part in this utter fiasco. He has been the one that has been scapegoated. He may well carry a significant amount of blame. What we don't know is whether he will tomorrow, when he is dragged before the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, even though he's no longer in his role, they can still summon him, whether he will actually hang Starmer out to dry. I think that is the moment probably for maximum peril for the Prime Minister.
The bear traps are there, aren't they? Because the Prime Minister his speech is before Ollie Robbins' speech, I'm sure, or Ollie Robbins' appearance at the committee. I'm sure Downing Street would have rather, in many respects, it was the other way around. But because, of course, they've got to be very careful. He's got to be very careful what he says and try and predict that he's not going to be massively contradicted 24 hours later.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. My goodness, you really raised something important there, which is he's going to have to predict all the bear traps. I've no doubt there's been endless rehearsals of this over the weekend. Yes. Now, let's not forget, and as if we need reminding, that this man is a lawyer by training. And I would just expect him to wheel out the same phrases, which are as least risky as he can possibly concoct. Just to get through today until tomorrow. And then you've got on Wednesday his chance to once again come back on it. So if Ollie Robbins contradicts him tomorrow, or basically throws a grenade into number 10 tomorrow, Wednesday the Prime Minister once again has to face everybody,
of course,
and doubtless he will once again avoid, dissemble everything that he can do to cling on to his job for another few weeks. It's perfectly obvious this Prime Minister is not going to be Prime Minister in the run-up to the next general election. This is just simply a question of timing.
Yep.
He is wholly discredited, and what his rivals are trying to calculate is when is the most opportunistic moment for them to strike. And this is all around the forthcoming local elections, the timing of that. Are they ready? What is the most powerful point for them to strike? It will happen. I am sure of that in the next few weeks, but it's all around these local election results.
I'm wondering whether Ollie Robbins will he remain not loyal specifically to Starmer, but loyal to the position of public office, in that, we may well hear him say, yeah, I did have that information and I didn't share it with the Prime Minister. Now, people will then speculate, well, that's surely job done then. Starmer is completely in the clear. It still doesn't quite add up, of course. And let's just hear this clip from Starmer in Parliament in February talking about his position. OK, so this is his take on Mandelson in February this year, Isabel. Have a listen.
Time and time again, Mandelson completely misrepresented the extent of his relationship with Epstein and lied throughout the process, including in response to the due diligence.
Now, at that point, the reason I play that clip, Isabel, is because at that point, he'd obviously had a conversation with someone who'd explained to him that, we now know that he'd lied, and the due diligence and all the rest of it, it's quite clear he'd lied. Was he so incurious, is that the right word? Incurious, that he would not have said, oh, by the way, how did that security check go? Would that not have just come up naturally at some point?
I just don't find it credible at all. And interestingly, the reporter who first flagged up that he failed that security vetting, David Maddox, pointed out that the actual concerns initially were over his links to China.
Yeah.
Which that story has kind of been slightly forgotten in all the storm over the ambassadorial appointment. Actually really, really serious that the Prime Minister also appointed somebody whose links, previous commercial links to the communist regime of China, which is not our friend. It really is not our friend. He pressed ahead anyway, despite all that. So very, very, very embarrassing for everybody concerned. A critical week, but I don't expect Starmer to have resigned by the end of the week, not a bit of it.
I mean, it's interesting you bring up the David Maddox element of this, the independent journalist who contacted Downing Street around about 7 months ago now. Now, to me, if you could put everything else aside, the Maddox phone call to number 10, Keir Starmer's house, that is it. That's all you need to know. And I hope somebody, Kemi Badenoch or Ed Davey, Nigel Farage, whoever, I hope that is raised later today, because that is the point when somebody literally phoned the Prime Minister's office and said, I've heard, and this isn't, a bloke who overheard a conversation on a bus. I've heard, my sources are telling me that Mandelson failed the deep vetting security checks. And there it was. And the question was raised. So number 10 at that point, if they didn't know before, they knew that day.
There's funny parallels here with Cakegate that brought Boris Johnson down. Because again, with Cakegate and the whole issue of Boris Johnson and number 10 parties during COVID lockdowns, the birthday cake incident was actually reported, as I recall, in a diary column, quite casually, many, many months before it ultimately proved the then Prime Minister's undoing. And this is what sometimes happens, that tiny details that at the time of reporting appear to be just by the by or quite casually mentioned turn out to be critical in chronologies, in political fates and futures of prime ministers. But Ian, we must talk about something else. I know you've got a couple of things you want to raise with me. I want to talk to you about the reporting that I have been doing with Christian Drogan, who is our Talks undercover migrant from some months ago, people remember. We have been in Belgium reporting on one of the most disturbing new trends in the small boats crisis. Now the people smuggling operation is expanding along the coast from northern France into Belgium. And I believe that Talk will be the first media outlet to have witnessed boats leaving from those beaches this year. There have been more than 20 boat departures. And you know what is happening that is utterly scandalous? The Belgian authorities, the Coast Guards and their search and rescue people, are handing the boats over to the French. They're escorting the boats from Belgian waters to French waters. And then guess what? The French hand them over to us. So guess who's the mug in this? It's always the British.
What is? Yeah, I was just going to say on that point. I mean, I read this story. There it is. There on your piece on the front of the Telegraph this morning. I mean, it is. I keep repeating this line. You know, every now and again you have to read something twice because you think, well, I've clearly missed something here. It cannot be surely that the Belgian authorities are escorting boats to the French. Yes, that's exactly what is happening. How is this? Is this being done? Is there some kind of tacit agreement between the Belgians and the French?
Yeah.
Is it given the go-ahead from High Office in Belgium? What's happening?
It's just astonishing. I think it is given the go-ahead from High Office. I mean, the governor of West Flanders, which is the area along the coast in Belgium where all this is taking place, has been pretty vocal about this. I mean, he is very anti-small boats. He's terrified of his stretch of coastline becoming like that lawless nightmare that is now the northern French coast, where we've reported the sound of semi-automatic weapons at night, and it's basically practically in the control of the gangs. Yeah. So Mr. Flanders is terrified that his part of Belgium will soon be seeing sprawling migrant camps. So we'll be bringing you all of that. It's a broadcast Talk exclusive. Also, we got inside without any subterfuge. We were invited inside some asylum seeker accommodation in that area. And that was fascinating because of the contrast between how they look after asylum seekers in Belgium, you know, an EU country. It's not like they're some kind of, you know, human rights nightmare. And the contrast between the conditions they live in, which, I mean, I've been inside British prisons and it is very, very similar. Without the security, we're talking very Spartan accommodation.
So no one in the Four Seasons over there in Belgium?
Absolutely not. They're not even in the one season there. They're in the kind of eternal chill.
Just very briefly, just to go back to not so much Mandelson, but the next steps after Starmer, after May. We know that on Friday, apparently, Angela Rayner and Andy Burnham got to go. Imagine sitting around that table in Nando's. There they were, getting together, having a bit of a powwow, clearly on manoeuvres. But, I mean, this is not an insignificant meet-up. They didn't happen to just bump into each other in Boots and say, let's go and get a bite to eat.
Hang on, Ian. Is it Boots or is it Nando's, or have you made both those things?
No, they met in Boots. They met in Boots buying shampoo and then said there's a Nando's down the road.
Oh, I'm loving the Nando's idea.
So it's a nice idea, isn't it? I wonder what they would have gone for. Let's not pursue that, but a lot of peri-peri.
Of course it's significant, but the other person to watch is Anna Sarwar, who is the leader of the Labour Party in Scotland. Now, weirdly, the SNP is enjoying a kind of resurgence in support up there, and Anna Sarwar, as leader of the Labour Party, Scottish Labour Party, sort of pretty much on the back foot and doesn't have a huge amount to lose. And some people may remember a few months ago, he really stuck his neck out and said, basically, Keir Starmer has got to resign. And that was a bit of a humiliation for him, you could argue, because Keir Starmer didn't resign and he'd stuck his neck out and sort of showed that he's disloyal. But insofar as things are now hotting up again, he has doubled down. He came out over the weekend and essentially said, guys, this is why I was right a few months ago. I said what I said a few months ago, and sure enough, you know, he should have resigned.
Yeah.
So I think he's an interesting player because generally in these situations, those who really expect that they've got the best chance of taking over from the Prime Minister are not the ones that come out and actually that wield the dagger. It's that whole thing, isn't it? Those that wield the dagger don't end up carrying the crown, or whatever that famous phrase about Heseltine.
Indeed. Just a final point, only asking this because I know you are connected in some shapes and forms. Richard Tice, Deputy Leader of Reform UK, making some news over the weekend about unpaid tax. What is your response to that, Isabel?
Well, this is a hell of an operation by the Sunday Times. I used to be political editor there. You know, I certainly admire any journalist that keeps getting the same story on the front page 2 weeks running. It's a rehash of the previous week's story. What Richard has said is that story about his tax, I'm going to call it tax efficiency because that's what he's called it, is riddled with errors and mistaken assumptions. But what he's also said is that he has been a businessman for 40 years. He's been a director of 150 companies across multiple countries. If someone is going to join up with a Labour Party activist tax expert and crawl all over company accounts for years and years and years over multiple directorships, I mean, it's almost inevitable they are going to come up with something somewhere that may or may not have been wrong. Richard is not in the business of trying to evade tax, and nobody has suggested that he has tried to evade tax. Yeah. What is being suggested is that there may or may not have been some errors. He has said very openly that if figures are checked and there have been any errors, he's more than happy to pay any difference. But what I would point out is that last time Reform's critics tried this, which was back in the Brexit referendum, I remember it quite clearly, and pushed for a tax investigation into Richard Tice. HMRC did that investigation, and guess what? He got a whopping rebate. He had overpaid tax. So this is political. I don't think it's illegitimate. You know, he's a frontline politician, and he will do the right thing if that is required.
Yeah, I did think when I saw this story, and I say this about any party in this respect, but as you rightly say, Richard has been director of over 150 companies. He's worked over decades. He's built an incredibly successful empire in that time. But it is just worth saying the idea that, you know, he sat in his kitchen filling out his own tax return with a, you know, set of post-it notes, working out where I can, you know, perhaps avoid this, not evade, avoid, you know, is clearly nonsense. If you're running companies of that magnitude, then there's a lot of people behind it. There's a lot of paperwork. There's many, many years of ledger books and spreadsheets and God knows what. I think that's just worth putting out there, because I think when people see these stories, there is a sense of, you know, for those that are enemies of a party or a politician, they will jump on this and try and make equivalencies all over the place. And that's not really what we're dealing with here.
I just want to add one thing, which is that Richard is giving everything he's got to trying to save our country. This is really thankless work, hour after hour. I don't know anyone, perhaps apart from Nigel Farage himself, that works such crazy hours going up and down the country, fighting for his constituents, fighting for voters. We can agree or not agree on Reform's agenda, but I tell you, he is my fiancé. I see very little of him. He is giving his all for our country. Whether or not you agree with the policy agenda, he is trying to give people an alternative. And if his interest was purely and primarily about making money or saving money, my God, he wouldn't be in politics, and he wouldn't have been doing this for year after year after year. And this type of relentless persecution and crawling all over everything anyone has ever done in the business world is why we don't have more good business people in politics. It's why we have a Labour cabinet that doesn't have a single experienced business person on it, because they get treated like this.
Absolutely fair. does he? I know Richard a bit, obviously, over the last few years. Is this the sort of thing that would worry him? Would it bother him, the idea of an electoral commission investigation on the back of something like this? Is that possible?
I think the investigation people have asked for is an HMRC thing. As I said, when this happened before, he was given a really decent rebate. Look, it's just wearying, isn't it? It's so depressing when you're giving it your all. You're utterly exhausted. You are constantly trying to do stuff for the public good, whether or not people agree with your policy agenda. It is wearying to constantly have the worst possible gloss painted on everything you have done. And I think that he will be very robust, but I'm sick of it. I think it's so depressing. It's also negative. We have massive problems in the UK. They extend far beyond some technical error from several years ago from one of Richard's 150 directorships. For goodness sake, there are bigger and more important things than this.
Isabel, great to have you on as ever. Thank you. Isabel Oakeshott responding there to those headlines and the other big stories of the day, the real big stories of the day. Thank you to Isabel, Talks International editor. Over to you for more comment on the way. 0344 499 1000, 25 past 8. This is Talk.
Any minister, whether it's the most important one, the Prime Minister, lying to the House of Commons is a capital offence and would have to go.
A week before the attack, he was off to try and do a different attack, and he was eventually stopped by his dad. So the second time it happened, where they also knew he ordered a cab and took out a knife from the house, they never once called the police.
First rule of politics, don't slam the Pope. Don't have a go at the Pope, because you lose the Catholic vote at a stroke. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. I like his brother.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back. 28 minutes after 8 o'clock, it's Ian Collins in for Jezza for the rest of this week. There's lots to get through. Obviously, big centre point of gravity, politically speaking, is that appearance of Keir Starmer in the House of Commons later this afternoon. Usually around about 3:30, you would expect those kind of statements to happen. But, of course, the questions that come from the opposition benches will be key. Let's speak with Kevin Hollinrake, MP, chairman of the Conservative Party. Kevin, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ian.
So are we going to get the whole truth?
I doubt it. I mean, he's been so reluctant to give us the truth for months now, for years now, actually. But don't forget, this came out in September when Kemi Badenoch pressed him in the House about it and led to his Mandelson's resignation or sacking. And also then we took forward some parliamentary procedures which meant that Keir Starmer would have to reveal the full information of what he knew and when, and he hasn't done that. And it looks like, as part of this story, not only did did Mandelson fail the vetting disgracefully and still given the job anyway. But it seems to be the case that Keir Starmer's sought to hide the information around this vetting situation. So it's utterly disgraceful. Yep. Keir Starmer has either lied or is recklessly negligent. Our position, he should resign.
And it's interesting that nobody, apparently, according to how we are being told, nobody at number 10. So he gets given the job, and while he's got the job, the vetting process begins, and they're looking into it. And no one at any point thought to ask somebody in the Foreign Office, how's the vetting going? I mean, you might have thought that would just be a standard question. How did our man do with the vetting? Nobody asked.
Well, I think that's the point, actually. You use the phrase "our man," and that's exactly how this situation has developed. Keir Starmer wanted his man, Peter Mandelson, at all costs. And not only did they not ask the right questions were asked of them. So we saw a journalist from The Independent who had asked number 10, he said to number 10, back in September, is it true that Mandelson failed the vetting process, the security vetting process? And number 10 effectively ignored the question and answered a completely different question. Yes. Normal process was followed. So they knew what was going on. They knew who they were taking on. Everybody knew what Mandelson was like. This isn't a surprise to anybody. There was a due diligence report that said basically he kept his relationship with Epstein and that he had these relationships through his business with Russia and China, and he appointed him anyway. That's the catastrophic lack of judgment that Keir Starmer has shown here. And then he's tried to suppress the information. When the information has come out, he's just sacked people around him. He's sacked people like Morgan McSweeney, who was his chief of staff, and now he's sacked Ollie Robbins, who is the permanent secretary. He's been caught in the crossfire here, and despite having said in opposition that he always carries a can for his staff, he doesn't. He does the opposite. He throws them under the bus at the first opportunity to save his skin.
And of course, on the point of vetting, it's going to be asked, and I would imagine at least one MP is going to raise this afternoon. During this period when he was given the job but they were awaiting the results of the vetting, did he have access to any sensitive material during that time? Would there have been top secret reports that he was able to see? A perfectly reasonable question. Because latterly, of course, as it turned out, he failed that particular element of the vetting, so shouldn't have been looking at them at all. Exactly right. He was given the highest level of clearance. This, despite the fact, some of the information that was revealed during the course of this, of everything coming out into the open, that he leaked information back in 2008 with Jeffrey Epstein that could have been market sensitive. Yeah. And he had a continuing relationship with the Russians and the Chinese. And clearly he had access to information that would have been useful. This is a man of no integrity whatsoever. He's a wrong-un. Keir Starmer appointed him anyway, despite knowing all that. So this ultimately comes back to the judgment of the Prime Minister. We know what Mandelson was like. Now we know what Keir Starmer is like. He's not fit for office. He's not fit to be Prime Minister. He should resign. It's a big day for Keir Starmer, obviously pivotal in terms of his credibility and career. Also a big day for your leader, Kemi Badenoch, though, Kevin. I mean, she needs to get a bullseye on this. She needs to take a scalp. Well, I mean, we don't have the numbers to force him to resign, of course, and I think he'll try and cling on. I think he'll cling on because his backbenchers will protect him, which I think is disgraceful because people up and down the country want him to go. But Kemi Badenoch's led the way on this. She's done a fantastic job, as she's doing time and time again. People see her week in, week out, completely demolishing him at Prime Minister's questions and through other means as well, other channels as well, not least the media and social media. So she's leading the way, but we only have so much... we have restricted ability to be able to force him to resign. Sure. All we can do is put the pressure on. We'll continue to do that. But I think the point you raised earlier, and one that I've consistently been making since this story broke, is the David Maddox, the independent journalist, 7 months ago, ringing Downing Street. He didn't say I'd overheard it by a bloke on a bus. I mean, when a senior political journalist calls Downing Street, then the chances are a reliable source has given them some information. Even if the information turns out not to be true, that's usually how it works. So a senior journalist respected in the in Westminster reporting and Westminster journalism calls Downing Street right there, even if the person on the other end of the phone or the text didn't know specifically that would have been a meeting would have followed that phone call. People would have convened and said, hang on, there's a journalist wants to know that Peter hasn't achieved his developed vetting or hasn't passed the developed vetting process. The idea that nobody knew in Downing Street, we know is demonstrably, evidently not true. Because literally because of that point, regardless of all the Ollie Robbins stuff and anything, that call from the one journalist tells us that they knew.
Absolutely. It wasn't, I don't think it was a phone call, it was a text. David Maddox revealed that text over the weekend.
He did.
Not revealing his sources, as he says, but he needs to on this occasion, because it's so demonstrable that they knew and they were told about the vetting. But the point around all that is, of course, they knew what Mandelson was like. They had a due diligence report which went straight to the Prime Minister about Mandelson, which is in accordance with the security vetting process as well. I mean, Ollie Robbins came to the Select Committee, Foreign Office Select Committee in November and said, basically, this is a done deal. Keir Starmer wanted Mandelson at all costs, irrespective of what any other information came to light. So Keir Starmer has to take responsibility for this. He can't keep saying, oh, it's everybody else's fault but mine. I didn't know, I'm furious. It's complete nonsense. I'll tell you what, we're furious. We're furious about the way this country has been run, not just about Mandelson, about all the other stuff as well, about how he's completely mismanaging the economy, how he's crashing business confidence, how he's crashing consumer confidence. And we've got some really important things going on in our country right now. The Middle East problems, the cost of living consequences around that. We need him to act. We need him to do stuff. We have to start drilling in the North Sea. We need to implement our cheap power plan that would cut people's bills by 20% overnight. We need him to confirm that the scrapping the planned rise in fuel duty, which has been frozen for 15 years. All those things we need him to do, but clearly the man has no backbone. He's not fit to lead this country. He should resign.
Final question, Kevin. Have you got any intel over there at Tory HQ as to what Mandelson or which aspect Mandelson failed on when it came to this vetting?
We don't know specifically. We haven't seen the security vetting documentation. We hope to see that. That's why we put in place this parliamentary procedure that forces the government to reveal this information. We'll all know a lot more. But I guess it's around his links to Epstein, his previous conduct in office, and his links to China and Russia. But all that stuff was known. It was the bleeding obvious, which is why this, at the end of the day, this goes back to the Prime Minister's judgment. He can't hide behind officials. He can't hide behind his staff. He should take responsibility and resign.
Kevin, thank you for your time. Kevin Holland-Rake, MP, Chairman of the Conservative Party. They will be out in force, one would hope, along with all other opposition parties this afternoon. It'll be interesting to see what line of questioning Kemi Badenoch takes. I mean, she'll get questions in there. Many of the backbenchers will, Nigel Farage, Ed Davey, all of the others will be vying to ask a question. And there are so many questions that need to be asked. Did Sir Keir Starmer mislead Parliament? Why didn't the PM correct the record immediately? Was Sir Keir really the last to know? The Prime Minister, the last to know? Should he have been told what had happened? There's a school of thought that you keep this stuff... Really? Something as high profile as your ambassador, you keep that stuff away from the PM? Why did officials say Mandelson should not get security clearances? I just asked Kevin there. Has the PM seen the verdict himself yet on this? Did Mandelson read top secret reports? Again, I put this to Kevin while he was ambassador and before the results of the vetting had been released. How much digging did Downing Street do onto this? Why didn't the Foreign Secretary know? Was the fall guy only obeying orders? Ollie Robbins? All of those questions need to be asked, and poignantly, and by more than one person, ideally. This is our Prime Minister. It's our democracy. It's been thrown in the bin. This isn't about protocol or a little T&C or a rule and reg that's been breached. This is big stuff. Our ambassador to the United States was not fit for purpose. The Foreign Office knew about it. He still got the job, but who else knew? 0344 499 1000. Let's get a voice note on Starmer. This comes from Wayne. Morning, Wayne.
Good morning, Ian. Keir Starmer, as a 3-year-old who's been caught with his hand in the cookie jar, this is how today's going to go. Now, Mr. Starmer, it is quite clear with the cookies on the side that you took the cookies. Now,
let's be very clear. Did you actually see me take the cookies? Is there any evidence to say that I took the cookies? Mr. Starmer, there is cookies all over the side, and you have chocolate around your mouth. You asked me, did I take the cookies? The answer is no. Right, well, Mr. Starmer, you've got chocolate around your mouth, so you've clearly eaten the cookies. Yes, I have eaten the cookies. So, did I eat the cookies? Yes, but it was Mr. Bexwin's fault.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Yeah, good morning. Welcome back, the home of common sense. This in from Dan in Kent. Considering this Labour government's pledge was not to be like the Tories and change leaders every 5 minutes, does that mean whoever takes over, if Starmer does go, should be calling a general election? Well, they tend not to do that very often over there if they can avoid it. Labour will be there till 2029, but will the current leader be? Let's get to work with David Maddox, political editor at The Independent. David, good morning to you.
Morning, Ian.
Nice having you. I don't think I've mentioned anyone's name so often in such a short period of time as I have yours this morning. And it's all rather simple, actually. Whatever is said, whatever's being said about, this is the point I've been putting to our guests, about Ollie Robbins, what he did know, what his remit said, is he allowed to, keep information of that magnitude to himself and not tell anybody? Was it just him? But did Downing Street know what was written down, what was said verbally? These are all kind of nuanced distinctions, etc. All of that, in many respects, goes out of the window when we look at what happened with your communication last September, 7 months ago, with Downing Street. That's all, in many respects, anybody needs to look at on this.
Yes, I mean, even if you accept the premise, which I have to say most people don't, but if you accept the premise that somehow the Prime Minister was kept in the dark and didn't have the usual kind of private chats and warnings and things flagged up to him back in January, or when this was going on, last year. By September, Downing Street knew. He said last week that Downing Street didn't know until last week. That's not true.
Yeah.
I told them because I'd had a well-sourced story, which I told directly to his director of communications. It wasn't a minor person. It was Tim Allen, who was handpicked, very experienced, very senior, had literally spoke to the Prime Minister every other minute. So I informed him. You saw his reply. As he said, I took the unusual step of publishing that initial exchange because I wanted to show people that they did know. And, it wasn't just a quote in a story. We did run the story. We ran a front page on the story, which means that again would have been flagged up. I mean, I've spoken to plenty of former senior ministers and top people who were top people in the civil service who explained the process to me. These things would go up the line. So the idea that they didn't know in September is just for the birds.
It's completely not true. I mean, that is demonstrably not true. You've got the receipts, as they say, to prove that. And of course, I thought the response you got from Downing Street, which was, we followed the usual procedures or whatever it was now, vetting done by the FCDO in normal way was their response. Well, that kind of, you wouldn't have to be Poirot or Columbo to say, well, there is a tactical response if ever there was one.
Yeah, and actually, to be honest, at the time, I was quite pleased with that response because it kind of gave me the green. They weren't denying it.
Yeah.
It kind of gave me the green light to say, go ahead with the story. So I did.
If that story was completely new to them, wouldn't you'd have thought that Tim, as Director of Communications, would have messaged you back and gone, what, really? Where are you getting this from? That would have been the instinctive response from a Director of Communications.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was interesting. I looked at the timing because I remember at the time the ticks went up quite quickly, so he read it quite quickly.
6 minutes after 2.
Yeah, and then it took him just over 3/4 of an hour to come back to me with his response, and so he clearly made at least one phone call in the interim or asked somebody in the interim, and then. From then on, we, as I say, we splashed it. It was mentioned in the Commons.
Yeah.
It was there was a bit of follow up on it. Then, of course, there were so many Epstein revelations and issues with Peter Mandelson who's just been sacked, and the story moved on.
But as you rightly say, so you make the communication with Downing Street. It's mentioned in the Commons. It's a splash on the Independent. I mean that. There would have. I was talking to one former Director of Communications at Downing Street at the weekend on this point, who said it would be unthinkable that if a journalist had made that inquiry, that would not be. I mean, the Director of Communications meets with the Prime Minister every single day, and it would be unthinkable that would not be raised.
Yeah, I mean, Rob Mitchley, who was a special advisor in Downing Street during recent Conservative governments, has actually tweeted about it as well. Last night, he explained what the process would be. I mean, I spoke to a retired former civil servant who literally dealt with crisis issues, which threatened to bring down previous governments, and he explained to me, he's just said it's just not credible that this wouldn't have immediately set the kind of klaxons going and people investigating. So, in the end, the Prime Minister here is guilty of even lying, frankly. I don't want to accuse people of lying, especially Prime Minister, but he's guilty of that or willful ignorance. And there's nothing in between.
So a source told you, but the Prime Minister was not privy to any of that. I mean, it's sort of slightly extraordinary. And obviously today, Kemi Badenoch, Ed Davey, Nigel Farage, all the various backbenchers would surely have... I mean, it's not ambiguous, this, is it? I mean, that's the curious thing of this story. Often when a story comes out, there's a couple of different ways you can look at it. I can't see any way out of this. Kemi Badenoch's just got to say to the Prime Minister, it was talked about in Parliament, it was on the front page of the Independent. David Maddox had literally called your house and your office, and you didn't know about it. I mean, at the very best, that would make ineptitude take it to another league in terms of Mr. Starmer's command on those that work with him.
I mean, it'd be gross professional misconduct if Tim Allen hadn't done anything, if he'd just buried it. I mean, I suppose that's always possible. Yet another one. I mean, it seems that the Prime Minister's defence is that about a dozen people are guilty of gross professional misconduct, essentially. Which is why I just don't believe that it wasn't flagged up. I mean, Tim Allen was a consummate professional. We didn't always get on, but he was a consummate professional, very well experienced. So, it's just I found the whole thing bizarre, frankly. I've been covering politics for quite a while, as you know, and I've never experienced anything like this. It's just taken things onto a new level. I mean, Starmer just kind of relies on legalese. And, I would guess the fact that nothing's written down in a lot of these meetings and his briefings.
Well, that's rather the issue, isn't it? That interesting distinction between things that are said verbally and stuff that's written down. So when an official, whether it's a Downing Street Labour Party official in Downing Street, or whether it's from the civil service, they're able to say, no, this was not, we didn't know about this because there's no footprint, there's no paper trail.
Yeah, exactly, and that seems to be his defence. But I mean, quite honestly, when I wrote the story, nobody believed at the time that he hadn't been told. The Americans knew about all this because I wrote the story back in January last year that they were thinking about rejecting Mandelson's credentials for exactly the same security reasons from China and Russia, and were warning Downing Street about that. So, I mean, in the end, he didn't even need a security vetting. All he needed was Google just to refresh himself about all the issues with this man. We all knew about the issues with this man. He was sacked twice. He was close to Russia. He was close to China. And then, the Epstein stuff, in some ways, as dreadful it was an add-on on that. I mean, the China and Russia stuff alone made him a security risk.
Well, I mean, even back to 2009, David, when he stayed at Epstein's house, when Epstein was in jail for child sex offences. Mandelson was essentially the de facto deputy PM at that time. Literally, people would have known where he was. It would be ridiculous that he'd gone on holiday and didn't tell anybody. So there it was, played out in real time. I mean, that was a matter of... There wouldn't have even been any denial at the time. Where's the deputy PM? Where's the business secretary? Oh, he's staying at Epstein's house.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the issue. I mean... it does seem that Mandelson had a habit of maybe not telling the full truth to people on these occasions and hiding some aspects, but it was pretty clear. I mean, and in the end, I mean, it was, what brought down Boris Johnson was not Partygate. It was his judgment on appointing the wrong people. It was the Christopher Pincher thing that finished him, because it showed that he had bad judgment in appointing bad people to important jobs. This is 10 times, 1,000 times worse than Chris Pincher.
Well, indeed. The rule, never employ a man called Pincher, never employ a man whose nickname was the Prince of Darkness. I mean, I guess there's a correlation there. Can we expect more firings, do you think, as a result of this? I mean, people are talking about Dame Antonia Romero. She's only been in the job about 20 minutes. I mean, goodness me, the UK's newly appointed top civil servant. Apparently she knew about this. So where does this leave those kind of players in this game of grim chess?
Well, he's sticking by her. She's quite a survivor, is Dame Antonia Romero. So I wouldn't take on her without...
she would have got a dressing down, though, wouldn't she?
She may well do, but it's... I mean, this man is burning through the cream of the British civil service. He's literally sacked two cabinet secretaries now, one of whom he appointed and sacked within a year. I mean, he's sacked the man he appointed to be permanent secretary of the Foreign Office. All high flyers, all very talented, intelligent people. And I mean, all to save his own skin, which, quite honestly, most of us question whether he'll survive much beyond May anyway. And
indeed.
It's like,
What about David Lammy in all of this, David? Is he kind of off the hook? He was literally the Foreign Secretary. He worked in the same building as Ollie Robbins, for goodness sake. He was down the corridor. So, he knew nothing either.
That's a very, very interesting question, because David Lammy, in some ways, is more culpable in this than Keir Starmer, even though the appointment was being driven by Downing Street.
Yeah.
I did a very good interview with James Cleverly over the weekend, who, of course, was Foreign Secretary himself. And he described to me how there is no actual process for appointments of head of missions. It is completely, by historical quirk, completely in the gift of the Foreign Secretary. And the Foreign Secretary could do what he wants, or she wants in this case. And so, it was Lammy's decision. And James describes in quite a lot of detail about the private conversations, unminuted private conversations, which would be flagged up with warnings. He tried to make a couple of so-called political appointments to much more minor roles of heads of mission, and ran into trouble. He didn't give me names, but he ran into trouble because of issues which were privately flagged up with him, and so these didn't go ahead. Yeah. And he says it's just not credible. It was inconceivable, he said, that David Lammy wouldn't have been told. And he said, of course, David Lammy was told, then the Prime Minister would have been told, especially in a case where Downing Street is pushing an appointment.
Indeed. Just a final question then, David. What do you expect Starmer to actually say today? How is he going to... We've just talked through what I would suggest are, these are not partisan points. You're political editor at The Independent, for goodness sake. You're not coming from this from a sort of a rabid right-wing journalist perspective. But given everything we've said here, it's very hard to see where Mr. Starmer can find light at the end of this tunnel. What's he going to rely on for this?
Well, I mean, we know what he's going to say. He's relying on legalese and I didn't know, Gov. The dog ate my homework type excuses, I'm afraid to say. I mean, we backed Labour at the last election. We wanted them to succeed. Along with many others, we've been disappointed with a great deal about this government. Yeah. But it's, we wanted the best for them because we wanted the best of the country. Sure. But this is a dreadful... I mean, there's been all sorts of dreadful errors of judgment on policies throughout, lots of U-turns. But this particular business with Mandelson is a dreadful error of judgment. And in the end, it's much worse, I think, because... this was actually about Mandelson's influence and power in the Labour Party. Correct. He was apparently allowed to bring his clients into the U.S. embassy, or the embassy in the U.S. He was apparently doing the reshuffles for Starmer last year, along with Morgan McSweeney. Yep. He had immense amount of control. That's why they gave him the job. It wasn't anything to do with him being the right person and they didn't care about probity at all. Yeah, I mean, quite clearly. Listen, David, I know you're going to be there today for this. Thank you for being on with us. Let's speak again this week if we can. David Maddox, political editor of The Independent, with us on the programme. Just remember that, of The Independent, not of the Mail, not of the Sun, not a paper that people have historically associated elsewhere on the political radar, but of The Independent, a overtly Labour-supporting newspaper. And his view, it's down really to David's diligent text message on the 11th of September last year, that's over 7 months ago, asking that Mandelson, I've been told by two sources, Mandelson did not clear the vetting process with MI6, but the PM pushed his appointment anyway. They knew. That's it. They knew. This is Talk.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That
Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCown.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits. That's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beard, and I feel.
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of its desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
It's the UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk. Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Yeah, welcome back. Good morning. Homer Common Sense, Ian Collins in for Jezza for the rest of this week. So much to get through. D-Day for the Prime Minister, of course. He's going to face the House of Commons. What will he say? How can he circumnavigate this one? There are certain irredeemables in this story. He can't get past it. The evidence is there. We just spoke to David Maddox, essentially the guy that was inadvertently responsible for this story in a very simple question to Downing Street 7 months ago. I'm hearing that Peter Mandelson has failed his security vetting. Can you comment? And they didn't comment. They put a one-word reply, one-sentence reply, which was all the usual procedures were followed, which is kind of a way of saying, yeah, he was, but I can't say that. We're also talking Angela Rayner and Andy Burnham on manoeuvres. They had a secret summit on Friday, spotted at the KFC in Salford. I'm just going to change the name of the restaurant every time we talk about it. They've never seen the like in there over at Cubicle 7, it seems. Clearly, they are weeding the path to power of some kind. Another story as well that's popped up, and that is that the United Kingdom, well, in fact, it's England in particular, is short of public toilets. There's only one for every 50. There's one toilet for every 15,000 people in this country. And we were talking about the perilous state of hygiene in public loos. And naturally, people have raised the issue of trains and aeroplanes. Here's a question, separate from the usual ablutions that go on in a public lavatory. Have you noticed on an aeroplane, there's actually a shaving plug point in there? You can actually whack off your... Sorry. You can actually whack off your beard in an aeroplane toilet. It's possible to have a shave. Has anybody ever had a shave on an aeroplane? I mean, that's a very weird thing to do, because those the little sinks in an aeroplane are kind of like little Barbie sinks. They're so tiny. If you started removing your stubble in one of those things, that's not very hygienic either, is it? Coming in there for a quick wee-wee, only to discover there's whiskers all over the place. I've never, ever thought of shaving on an aeroplane. I don't even have the... You have to bring a razor with you as well. How would you get that on the plane? Maybe an electric one, I guess. 0344 499 1000. Somebody will contact us and say, oh, I always have a shave on the way to Ibiza. Maybe that's true. We're all ears at this end. 87222 if you're messaging in. Lots to talk about here. Trevor Kavanagh joins us. Legendary political journalist, former political editor over there at The Sun. Morning to you, Trevor.
Good morning, Ian.
Days like this don't come around very often, do they, of course? I'm not talking about shaving on aeroplanes. I'm talking about Keir Starmer in the House of Commons. I mean, would it be fair to say, is it an overstatement to say that he's now fighting for his political life?
Well, the funny thing is, Ian, these days under Keir Starmer come around more or less every week.
Well, that's true.
We have one crisis after another. Every time we see him going through these strange shenanigans, we're saying he's a dead man walking. Well, he's a dead man walking and has been since he became Prime Minister. The scandals and the examples of lying and deception, I mean, this government is shabby, deceitful and unscrupulous, and has proven to be so from the moment it was elected. And in this particular example, we have a Prime Minister being accused of lying. Well, he might just about escape from the legal definition of lying, but the one thing that he can't escape from is the accusation of willful ignorance, which in many jurisdictions is tantamount to lying. It is also tantamount to being as serious as the original offence of which he accused Peter Mandelson, which was of lying.
Yeah. It's worth us playing this clip again, Trevor. Of course, when Labour came in to great flair back in 2024, their whole shtick, their whole thing is we're not the Tories, we're not corrupt, we do things differently. It is country first, party second, all this stuff. We don't do what Boris Johnson did or Liz Truss. We are not those guys. We're very different. So it's worth having a reminder of what Mr Starmer said. 2022, Boris Johnson was the Prime Minister. Keir Starmer was leader of the opposition. Here it is.
There are only two possible explanations. Either he's trashing the ministerial code, or he's claiming he was repeatedly lied to by his own advisers and that he didn't know what was going on in his own house and his own office. Come off it. He really does think that it's one rule for him and another rule for everyone else.
I mean, they talk about having the receipts. I mean, that's damning, isn't it, Trevor, given where Keir Starmer is today?
It's classic Schadenfreude, isn't it? Yeah. Look, the point is that Keir Starmer has known everything there needs to be known about Peter Mandelson. He's been in politics long enough and has known Peter Mandelson personally long enough to know all that we all know outside in the public and particularly the parliamentary media, who have followed the somersaults, twists and turns of Peter Mandelson for nearly 40 years. He cannot claim that he didn't know that Peter Mandelson was a liar. He is a congenital liar. That's how he's made his way through politics. And he knew all of the things that he claimed he didn't know before he actually appointed him as our ambassador to Washington. And he appointed him before the vetting process was complete. And obviously, civil servants who do not want to embarrass their Prime Minister publicly by contradicting him and forcing him into a U-turn kept quiet but they knew perfectly well that he knew.
And that's it, isn't it? And even if you look at the people around him, I referenced there a second ago, Trevor, the David Maddox contact with Director of Communications at Number 10 at the time, Tim Allen, and the communication they had there, that would have been enough, one would assume, to elevate the concern, the question to the Prime Minister. And I spoke to one former Director of Communications over the weekend who said it would be unthinkable that, bearing in mind the Director of Communications and the PM meet usually every single morning, sit there, Chief of Staff, Director of Communications, they have that meeting. Unthinkable that that wouldn't have been raised. It was also raised on the front page of The Independent subsequently and mentioned in Parliament. So this idea that nobody knew is just, I mean, it's not even a possibility that they could have missed this. It's a lie.
It's totally for the birds. The simple fact is that they were protecting their principal, who is Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister. And he could at any time have asked them, am I safe to be saying that all due process was properly followed? As he did repeatedly in answer to questions from Kemi Badenoch and others in the House of Commons, where, as I say, because of what I regard as a breach of a form of law, which is willful ignorance, he was not telling the truth. I mean, it's not just a lack of curiosity, as some people have suggested about him. This was his armour plating. If I'm not told, I don't know. Yeah. And therefore I can deny. And he is so congenitally unable to answer a stray question that he's as crooked as Peter Mandelson. He never directly responds to a question. Doesn't matter who it's from, whether it's from Kemi Badenoch or any other MP, or indeed from any member of the parliamentary press. He deadbats or changes the subject and never answers the question. Yeah. He never tells the truth.
Could it be, I mean, this goes down a whole other avenue, Tim Allen, who's no longer Director of Communications at Number 10, was only in the job 1 week when he was contacted by David Maddox. So could workplace naivety play a part in this?
No, and I tell you why, because Tim Allen, who I've known for very many years, would have known Peter Mandelson probably better than anyone else in the public sector. He has been, he was a key member of the Blair team from the moment he was appointed as a messenger around the press gallery, then as a special advisor, and then, of course, went into public relations and made a few £1 million out of his very, very close relationship with governments and politicians and Whitehall. Tim Allen knows where all the bodies are buried, and most of them are buried in or around Peter Mandelson.
Yeah. Yes, he's a man who's as you know as well as me, Trevor, his background is in communications. That's exactly where he knows how this whole thing works. He can spot a bear trap before anyone's even placed it. That was always his kind of style and his background and his skill set as well. And he was widely respected, of course, for that. So unthinkable that it wouldn't have shaken him to get this message from a journalist saying we're hearing Mandelson has failed the security vetting, and unthinkable that he wouldn't have elevated that to at least initially a meeting of some kind. I mean, that would trigger a meeting, wouldn't it, in Number 10?
It's unthinkable that any of these attempts to justify the Prime Minister's behaviour stand up to scrutiny. The only thing that is holding him in place after many, many similar situations where he's been cast as a dead man walking is that the Labour Party would descend into self-destructive civil war if he were to go. It's his weakness, his grotesque weakness, is actually now his strength. Yeah. And if he were to go, David Lammy would become Prime Minister until a new election was took place. Wow. Can you imagine David Lammy with the real levers of power at his fingertips? And then you'd have an election process in which someone would eventually emerge as the leader. And there is no one that I can think of, or that anyone else has come up with, who wouldn't make a greater hash of what's happening to Britain than that particular candidate.
So we could have 3 Prime Ministers this year, couldn't we? If Starmer went, we'd have Lammy as the temporary sort of interim character, and then one would assume not a general election, but an election within the Labour Party. So the Labour Labour will almost be beating the Tories on prime ministerial appointments.
Well, I think in the short period of time that they've been there, they've done pretty well on this. Ministerial, first permanent secretaries, cabinet secretaries, and so on. The list of casualties is enormous. Yeah. The only thing that's going to save us is a general election. And they know, looking at the polls, that they face wipeout if they were to go to the polls. They have an absurdly large majority, so they don't have to go to the polls. Yep. We are stuck with this lot. It's a terrible prospect for another 3 years.
So would it be unthinkable that Keir Starmer would call an early general election to, you know, we remember John Major back in the 90s who wanted to draw a line under things, bickering, disquiet, fog, wanted clarity. Right, let's have a leadership election and then we'll be able to decide. Let's have an election, we can decide from there. Do you think that Starmer would do that, or is that way too much of a risk for Keir?
I don't think there's anything he can do. I mean, were he to have a leadership election, he would have to go. So, I mean, he couldn't simply fight an election. He has the lowest opinion poll rating ever in history, in the history of British politics. And so, in fact, does the Labour Party. I mean, they are in terminal decline, barely 2 years into an administration. It's totally unique, this. Yeah. We are facing a crisis, a perma-crisis in British politics for as long as they're in office, and they're in office, as I say, for another 3 years.
Indeed. So today, Keir Starmer takes to the dispatch box. It's going to be interesting. What's going to be quite telling, Trevor? I mean, I really hope opposition leaders and MPs have thought carefully about this, because it's really crucial what questions come from Kemi Badenoch in particular. Of course, she's the official leader of the opposition, but also the others, even Ed Davey, Nigel Farage and the like, because that's going to be key to this. We know Starmer's going to somehow weasel his way out of this with some form of words. He'll talk about regret, he'll talk about it might look bad, but this is what happened. But we need those other politicians to really hammer this one.
We do, and I think that actually Kemi Badenoch, of those you've listed, has so far come out as the best of the forensic questioners who have absolutely skewered Keir Starmer and put him in the position that he now is today, which is on a spit roasting. But the other thing to look out for, I think, Ian, is the response of Labour MPs themselves and critics within his party, who are prepared in some cases, Graham Stringer being a leading example, but several others, prepared to put principle above politics. And they are appalled by what Keir Starmer and others in his cabinet have done to their beloved Labour Party. It is no longer the Labour Party they joined, signed up to, or believe in. It is a party not of Labour, but of welfare. It is a party which doesn't defend its borders. It does not pay for its military defence. We are at serious risk, A, of being attacked and unable to defend ourselves, but also, apart from that, we are at serious risk of economic catastrophe and recession over the coming years, simply because of this government. Nothing to do with the Iran war.
Indeed. Trevor, always a delight to have you on. Thank you. We will speak soon. Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor over there at The Sun, a political journalist of decades experience. And again, looking forward to that interesting performance this afternoon. A few people have pointed out as well that the day that David Maddox asked Downing Street was the day that Mandelson was fired as ambassador. Because remember, there was, as there always is, a few days of will he stay, will he go, etc. So it would have been more, it didn't happen on a kind of random day when Mandelson was underway as the ambassador. Remember, Mandelson was only the ambassador from February to September last year. It wasn't like the second week that he got the job. This was on the day. So David Maddox's question to Downing Street would have been more poignant than ever, bearing in mind everybody in Downing Street in the communications department are thinking, right, how do we deal with this? How do we sell this as being not the primary? And then bang, in the middle of the day, just after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a journalist says, is it true that Mandelson failed security vetting? And that didn't go anywhere? Seriously? Nobody could believe that. Nobody with a straight face could ever believe that. 0344 499 1000. Layla Cunningham is going to be with us as well from Reform UK. If you've got a question you want to put to Layla, very simply, 87222, if you want to message that in. Layla, of course, is a big voice with Reform UK and is also the Reform UK mayoral candidate for London. That doesn't happen in May, but she is the mayoral candidate for London at the next mayoral election. She's got a lot of big opinions. If you want to put a question to her about reform, about the wider issues around the political spectrum and what is happening, 87222 or 0344 499 1000.
Current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up! I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, Ian Collins in for Jezza. I think the best tweet over the weekend came through from Mike Gardner. Mike's a lawyer, apparently. He says, well, he is a lawyer and apparently follows me as well. He just tweeted, breaking news, Starmer denies knowing that he was the Prime Minister. So Keir Starmer has revealed that no one told him until last Tuesday that he won the 2024 election and became PM. He told Beth Rigby, I was kept totally in the dark by my officials. I'm really angry about it. Layla Cunningham is with us, Reform UK's mayoral candidate in London. I mean, this stuff with Starmer and everything that's going on, I mean, journalistically, in terms of those that want, to look for clarity and decency in our system, I mean, this ticks every single box, doesn't it? I mean, it's just extraordinary.
Yeah, I think it seems it's like corruption for me. It's like stuff you see in third world countries where we go in and we want to fight for democracy.
Yes.
Who knew that security was optional? When I had to join the CPS, I had to go through security. If I failed that security, I wasn't going to get the job.
No.
And number one, I think the fundamental question is, I don't care who knew. If he knew, he should have known. He's the boss. But why was he so focused on getting him through no matter what?
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Who's he answering to, Starmer?
Well, there's the thing. I mean, many people have speculated this morning that this is often about the fact that Peter Mandelson is such a big figure in Labour, knows where all the bodies are buried. Not that he necessarily had dirt on Starmer or anything like that, but he's just so influential. He was too mesmeric a character to ignore. That Starmer and the like looked. Do you remember that press conference when he said, "Oh, to some people he's this, to some people he's that. To us, he's just Peter." And it was like,
yeah.
Well, it was just such a. What do you mean by that? He was almost saying, "No, we know he doesn't play by the rules. We know he's not a straightforward guy, but to us, he's our Peter."
Yeah.
I mean, that was quite telling when you look at it now.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely telling. But I think, what country's going to trust us now? What country's going to trust us with our secrets?
Yeah.
You know, when we let someone in and it finds out that actually his company had Russian links, China links, what country's going to be like, you know what, we trust them because their security is so tight.
Yeah.
You know, and that is the fundamental, I mean, it's the fundamental basis of any ally when it comes to national security, is how secure your information is.
Yeah.
And if we're like, you know, we're going to overlook it for mates,
well,
it's become a national security issue,
yes,
as opposed to just, you know, and I think Epstein's almost minor now when you hear about his connections with China and Russia. Although Epstein is absolutely horrific, that's a judgment issue. But the fact that he had connections with Russia and China, what was Starmer doing?
And American intelligence apparently were not that struck on Mandelson because they'd done their own digging as well. So they'd found stuff out. I mean, this is a mess. We have Layla Cullingham with us. If you've got a question you want to put to Layla, they're coming through already. 0344 499 1000. You want to talk about reform, you want to talk about Layla's mayoral candidate position as well. Anything you like. Shoulders are wide. I say that kindly, of course. And she's happy to take any issue or subject. You can
I am
message.
quite broad, though.
Quite broad. You're not short, are you?
No, I'm not. People think I'm a lot shorter, actually, when they see me.
Do they?
They think, oh my God, you're much taller than I expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway.
87222. How tall do you think Layla Cullingham is? You can win a jar of cookies if you get it correct. 87222 if you're messaging. 0344 499 1000. This afternoon, of course, we are going to have Keir Starmer standing there at the dispatch box. He will have a sort of ready-to-go, oven-ready kind of... I mean, he'd have been practising this in the bathroom mirror for the last 3 days. He's a lawyer. He knows his way around a defence. It's very hard to work out what series of words he could use here. Two things. One, without making himself look ridiculous, that those closest to him knew something and he didn't know. So there's that. But secondly, the tricky game he's got to play, Layla, is that tomorrow, of course, Ollie Robbins, formerly of the Permanent Secretary in the Foreign Office, he's going to be giving evidence to the Select Committee. And they don't know what he's going to say. So Starmer's got to be careful. He's almost got to imagine what Robbins might say tomorrow in order to not step on the bear traps today.
But Ian, also fundamentally, if Keir Starmer's saying he didn't know, and who's running the country? Is it our elected officials?
Yeah.
Is it the shadowy civil service that we don't know who they are, unelected? We go to the polls and we elect a government that we expect the leader of that government, when he makes this important decision, the responsibility lies with him, and that's full stop.
Yeah.
He should have known, he should have asked. You know, for instance, KYC, know your clients.
Yeah.
Even if you say I didn't know, you are prosecuted as their accountant or their solicitor if you should have known.
Of course.
You know, even if
it was your responsibility to know.
You can't be like, you know what, I didn't know this was a fraud. I didn't know that they're money laundering from Taliban, actually, or from ISIS. You should have known, and it's the same with the Prime Minister. He should have known.
If I was the Prime Minister, I know anybody can make this case. But bearing in mind, he had this whole period of time when suddenly the Epstein files started to reveal stuff about Mandelson. If you were the PM, you would be already looking at whether this ambassador position can remain. As it turned out, it didn't. You'd be telling your staff, screaming from the rooftops, I want every bit of information on that man that you've got. I want the head of the Foreign Office, I want the head of Intel, I want everybody in here.
Unless you knew it already, yeah.
Unless you knew it already, of course.
Don't forget he was appointed before security vetting, publicly.
Yes, that's right.
You don't do that in anywhere else.
Not really.
No, because honestly, it beggars belief, and I think it makes us a laughing stock of the world.
Yeah.
And I think Keir Starmer, once he becomes the butt of these jokes,
yeah.
You know, I didn't know I was Prime Minister. He obviously doesn't have the respect of the nation.
Let's take a call. This is Tony in Suffolk. Tony, what have you got for us? You're through to Layla. Hi.
Good morning, Darryl.
Morning.
Yes,
Good morning.
great show. I'm very curious if Keir Starmer is. Why did he know what was going on? If Piers Mandelson was our top ambassador from our country, surely he'd be all over this thing. It'd be important to know that it passed his vetting. So surely the bloke's got to be, well, economical with the truth would be an understatement, but he's going to be lying, isn't he?
I mean, here's the thing, Lily. You're a lawyer, so
Yeah.
you know your way around legal arguments and how they can be framed. I mean, this is a tricky one for him, isn't it? Because, as I said a second ago, what he's got to avoid is making himself look utterly ridiculous.
I think that's happened. You know.
I mean, I was going to say,
that's
that happened on July the 4th.
Well, but like Trevor Phillips
2024.
said yesterday on his show, I mean, he should have known. That's it.
Yeah.
He's the boss. You know, he's the boss, and he's got to take responsibility. We're so sick and tired. He always comes on in Parliament and says, "I wasn't told. I didn't know." Mate, it's your job to know.
It's your job to know. And it's interesting.
That's it.
Tony, you're making the point, how did Starmer not know? I mean, it seems...
We all knew.
But yeah, by the hour, it now seems not just implausible, but laughable, Tony, right?
Then, Tony, sorry.
It does. I mean, it's ridiculous. The fact, he's the Prime Minister of our once great nation, and he's just lying through his teeth to cover his own backside. And he's always blaming someone else. You know, that clip you played of Boris Johnson, him roasting Boris Johnson for not knowing what was going on in his own house. I mean, he should take a good look at himself, shouldn't he, really?
Yeah.
But I remember being on a show, and I remember when the story broke that he had failed to... Well, there was suspicions that he failed security, and I mentioned it in the show. And I think I was against a Labour person. He said, "Oh, that's not proven. You know, we don't know." We knew he failed vetting a long time ago. I mean, there was always rumours going around.
It was on the front page of the Independent in September.
Exactly. And I think the fundamental question that the British people have to ask themselves now is this government, is Keir Starmer serving the people? Is he serving himself? Is he serving the party? Or is he serving someone we have no idea who it is?
Indeed.
It's not us.
It's not us. Tony, thank you very much indeed for that. Point earlier, this goes into the territory of London. Of course, this will, from your perspective, hopefully be your city in terms of...
Our city.
Tell us about, because this is not in May this year. There are mayoral elections in May, but not in London.
Yes.
So how long have we got to wait for?
2 years.
2 years.
It's a long time.
Well, is it
but
a long time?
It goes.
It goes very quickly.
I mean, in January, when I was talking, you say, when did we know about the security vetting?
Yeah.
That he failed it in September. I feel it was like yesterday.
Yes.
But was it actually in September? I actually can't...
It was September.
Wow,
September when the Independent rang Downing Street and said, and then it was mentioned in Parliament. It was on the front page. Apparently, the Prime Minister didn't know any of this stuff. So earlier we were talking about synagogue attacks, where the capital, Manchester, and other areas have been very badly affected. We also heard earlier that a 17-year-old boy and a 19-year-old man have been arrested over the arson attack at Kenton United Synagogue in Harrow. This was around about midnight on Sunday. Let's get a voice note on synagogues. This comes from Pete. Morning, Pete.
Morning, Ian. Pete from Lincolnshire. Great show. Lovely to hear you in the mornings, by the way. Regarding that police statement that you just played with the police officer giving a statement about the Iranian thugs for hire, that concerns me that they seem to emphasise thugs for hire. It's almost as though they're trying to sort of down categorise the offence, or possibly even the type of offender that's committed these acts, almost as though they're trying to distance them from potentially being a terrorist or, part of the IRGC. And yeah, that concerns me greatly. And listening to that interview, especially when it goes on, it talks about it being a mugs game. Yeah, that to me, I'm very concerned about that statement. But nonetheless, great show. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Pete, thank you, mate. Great call as well. I mean, yes, I hadn't thought about it from that perspective, that when they talk about thugs for hire, it's almost as if it distances itself from who's responsible.
I think
this is just like, this is a thug fire. You could get them to smash up your mate's car, you can get them to attack a synagogue, anything you like. They're not really in it. It does, in some respects, it could be interpreted as diluting the severity or the motive.
Well, who hired them?
Well, indeed.
If they're thugs for hire, then obviously someone.
Well, that's the question. Who's behind the thug for hire?
You've had 4
theory.
potential arson attacks now on the Jewish community.
Yeah.
We've imported anti-Semitism in a mass degree. We're allowing IRGC proxies to march on our streets in terms of El-Quds, people carrying signs of Ayatollah Khomeini, who marched with the Greens. You know, the Greens turn a blind eye, but when they had their march against the far right, whoever that is, they had people marching alongside them with signs of Ayatollah Khomeini praising the IRGC. We talk about being tough on Iran's proxies, but we allow them to march on our streets and we tolerate them being present on our streets. Imagine how that makes, number one, me feel, I'm not even Jewish, but the Jewish community. And what's interesting, I was in front of King Solomon School in the Redbridge Borough, and the day after the arson attack that was last week, and the day that Sadiq Khan said that there would be an enhanced security police presence. Ian, not one officer in front of the school. This is a big Jewish school. And I asked the security guard, she said, we were expecting police. No one within the vicinity.
Wow.
No one on the streets. And this is, you know, these are Jewish kids that are leaving King Solomon School, a known Jewish school, and there was no one there. So it's the same when we had the Clapham riots in front of Marks and Spencer's. He said there'll be an enhanced police presence in Clapham. I went the following day, the day he tweeted that, not one police presence. He is gaslighting the public. Anti-Semitism is a massive issue right now. It's not even anti-Semitism. This is kind of a terrorist attack on the Jewish community. They must feel petrified.
Sadiq, you're talking about here.
No, there is an attack on the Jewish community. There's an arson attack every week on a Jewish synagogue, Jewish ambulances. They are in danger right now.
But
and they
in terms of failing British Jews,
100% failing. You know, why is there no police presence in front of Jewish schools, in front of Jewish communities, in front of synagogues? But that's what they need. They don't need talk. They don't need a statement. Oh, I'm deeply disturbed.
But is that a double-edged sword, though? Because, you know, if you're you know how kids in American high schools are kind of given, you know, shooter lessons, what to do if, you know, somebody comes with a gun, and they're taught where to hide and, you know, how not to make any noise. I mean, terrifying. You should go for that drill.
No, but they just want police there. Just a police officer, someone. After these, there's obviously...
Certainly
right now,
in the current
there is
climate.
a clear and present danger facing the Jewish community right now.
Would you put police outside all Jewish schools?
Yes.
Right now?
Right now, 100%. Of course, because these kids are walking back from school, the parents must be nervous, but also in front of synagogues.
Yeah.
Not only in front of, Jewish community centres. That has to happen.
Yeah, there's clearly something going on.
There's something going on, and I hope it doesn't escalate, and the only way to stop it escalating is to treat it as an emergency and to give adequate resources as if it was.
Here's a call from Sue, who's down in London. Sue, good morning.
Actually, I think you just answered my question.
Okay.
If this was happening to, for example, the black community, it would be seen as a national emergency. I don't believe that this government is taking it seriously, and I would hope that Reform would take it a hell of a lot more seriously. I mean, but you just said that you wanted to see police everywhere. We don't have enough police. We know that. And I just want to know if you also think that it actually is a national emergency. The Jewish community in this country are really scared. The attempted firebombing in Hendon on Friday night, a 2-minute walk from my house. You know, just because it says the word Jewish on the building, and we have a lot of buildings, a lot of shops, especially in northwest London. It's all a lot of Jewish stuff around here. Whether you are Jewish or not Jewish, we are in danger, and I personally don't feel there's enough being done, and it's not being seen. It's a national emergency, but nobody seems to be taking it seriously.
I agree, Sue. You know, you get these sweeping statements, but where is the police presence? I don't know if you've seen it in recent days as a result of this. When I came to Hendon in the first arson attack against the ambulance, there was a police presence. I don't know if that's sustained after that. It has to be a national emergency because it's obvious that the Jewish community is under attack. And, we're allowing anti-Semitism to march on our streets. We're allowing people who calls for the IRGC, praises them. What is wrong with us? We are telling the IRGC that your propaganda is allowed to march on our streets. What kind of country does that when we're actually at war with them? And yes, I have friends, some of my closest friends are Jewish, and they tell me their kids cannot walk on the streets with a Star of David. That's not the city I grew up in.
Outrageous.
And this is in all over London, not only in Jewish areas, and it's out. And listen, if London's not safe for the Jewish community, it's not safe for any of us. And I wish Sadiq Khan would give them the protection they need.
Would you declare this a national emergency?
Well, it wouldn't be in my gift, but I would declare it an emergency in London. I would declare it a security emergency in London, just like I would declare it if any community was under attack.
Yeah.
It is unacceptable that the Jewish community do not feel safe in their own city.
Sure.
And nothing's going on.
Sue, thank you very much indeed for your call. 0344 499 1000. Malcolm is in I nearly said New South Wales then. Well, you might be, Malcolm, but I think it's South Wales. Morning to you.
Yeah, morning. Yeah, my comment is about the Epstein saga. We know that he was procuring young girls and women for his powerful friends, but nobody has mentioned the fact that if he was doing that, he was probably also procuring young boys and young men for his powerful gay friends.
People have always speculated about that, but I don't think at the moment, I've not seen any journalistic evidence for that.
No, I haven't seen that. It's all's possible. There's so many Epstein files. I feel are the gift that keeps on giving, because there's always like another bunch of files. So perhaps that will come out, but I haven't seen that.
I think with Mandelson, Malcolm, the whole thing with him is that he loved power and influence, and I genuinely think
money. It seems,
and
money
as well. I think he felt that the whole kind of being in the inner circle of Epstein, and he probably wasn't as inner as he thought he was, because everybody thought they were, and that they were the special one, the chosen one by Jeffrey, who picked me of all the people that could break bread with him, go to his hotels, walk around in a bathrobe, stand in a hotel suite with my pants on. He'd picked me. I think the ego of Mandelson is so great that I genuinely believe, Layla, that he thought that he was dealing with almost the next tier of power and government. That here was Jeffrey. He was above the president. He was above prime ministers. This man was the real mover and shaker of things that went on in this world. And that really fed into the kind of desires and the egomaniacal kind of part of his response system.
You say that, yes, initially.
It was a drug.
But he was also his friend after he was convicted. And I think Epstein stopped being such a mover and shaker after that.
That's true.
And he still overlooked it.
Yeah.
And that is a fundamental question of judgment. He said, you know what, you have been convicted of abusing young girls.
Yep.
And you know what, it's fine. And actually, because Keir Starmer appointed him as ambassador, and Keir Starmer must have thought, you know what, we're going to overlook that, it's fine. And what does that say to women and girls in this country? That they stand there and they say, oh my God, he's the Prime Minister who's really stood up for women and girls.
Yeah.
No, he hasn't.
Here's just a quick point, just before we go to a break, Layla. Vincent in North Yorkshire, one question from me, Ian. Did Starmer pass his vetting? Now, here's the interesting thing is, if you're an elected MP, you don't have to go through any vetting. It's interesting. It's a quirk of the system. So you could technically stand for election on a Thursday, win, become the Foreign Secretary the next day, and be given access to the highest level of intelligence without being vetted, because you've been elected. But if you're a civil servant, you have to go through the process. So the Prime Minister isn't, they don't have to have that vetting, but those that work for the Prime Minister would, like Director of Communications and the like.
No, you don't, obviously, because that's democracy. You can't vet everyone that stands for office.
Yes.
But you almost have a de facto kind of vetting in that now are Americans going to share everything they want to with the Prime Minister? They're going to be like, you failed catastrophically. You sent someone who has links to Putin and China to be our ambassador.
Correct.
We don't trust you anymore. And what is that going to do for the next 2 years or 3 years, or, in terms of intelligence sharing between us? If I was America, I would think twice.
Layla Cunningham is with us. More calls and comments to Layla in a couple of moments. 0344 499 1000. Coming up on 9:45, this is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This
it is Talk 10:15. Barry says, question for Layla. The City of London is very important to the country, but it's been neglected by the Tories and Labour. How will you change things if elected? I mean, it's political legislation literally changing the face of something is like turning an oil tanker around, isn't it? You almost want, no, not 5 years, you almost want 55 years to do this stuff.
I don't know if he means the City of London as the financial city or the actual...
I would imagine he's referring, that Barry is referring to the capital city.
Yeah, I think, so people do say we have lack of resources, but there are 35,000 officers. The mayor controls the deployment, you know, priorities, not deployment, but priorities and direction and budget. And I think within 6 months, if I win, you would see police on the streets, you would see police stations are open, pop-up police stations on the high street, because without law and order, a city doesn't function. There's no point in personal liberties, civil liberties, if you always feel unsafe. So
Spot on.
Yeah.
This from Keith in Manchester. Ian, my 14-year-old goes to a Jewish school and has been taking security briefings on where to hide and what to do if there's a terrorist attack at their school. They've been doing this now for more than 4 to 5 years, says Keith in Manchester. Isn't that, I mean, thank goodness they are alert at that particular school. But what a sad place we're living. It's 21st century. And, you know, when you look
in the United Kingdom.
In the United Kingdom, you look at the story of Jews and everything that happened during and post the last World War, etc. And here we are in the United Kingdom, safe country, in the 21st century, and kids are getting security briefings on what to do if Jews are attacked.
I know, but I heard a really amazing first-hand experience from a Holocaust survivor a few days ago on Holocaust Memorial Day, and he was saying that when he arrived here in the 40s, he feels it's safer then than now to be Jewish. Imagine that. And Ian, that is a failure of government.
100%.
You know, that is a failure. It's a failure of who we've allowed into this country. We've allowed sectarian politics to flourish, because basically what we have is the Greens and Labour almost encourage sectarian government, you know, the sectarian kind of politics, because they're like, we will vote for you. If you vote for us, it's a vote for Gaza. You know, that's what the Greens are campaigning on in London. They're not campaigning on local issues, and they're encouraging this kind of divisive... They divide London into different communities and different religions and ethnic tribes. Nobody treats London as a unit and talks to all of London. They encourage that kind of division.
Here's a point from Reg, who says, we've had a conversation about Layla's height over dinner. There you go. This is... You are penetrating dinner talk. My wife says Layla is 5'10" with shoes on. I said 6 foot, but then again, my wife thinks I've got a crush on Layla. She might be right, says Rich.
Thank you. I'm 5'11" without shoes.
Oh, so it was between the two. 5'11" without shoes.
Without shoes.
Yeah. That's kind of...
Even though all my sisters are small.
That's kind of quirky.
I'm the anomaly, yeah.
Bit of breaking news, which will be relevant to your aspired brief. The RMT union has come under fire as London braces for tube strikes over 4 days this week. Underground drivers belonging to the RMT union are set to walk out from midday tomorrow for 24 hours, and then again midday on Thursday for 24 hours.
It's every month now. It's every few months. And every time they go on strike, we lose hundreds of millions pounds.
Yep.
People have to pay a fortune to just go to work, take their kids to their schools. There's taxis are a fortune. You can't even drive, because then you're going to pay the congestion and ULEZ charges. Parking's a fortune. It basically brings our city to a standstill, and that's just because he's beholden to the
how do you do? Because the RMT are going to hate you, aren't they? Because they're historically a left wing. It's a union. They're left wing, and they're doing this under a Labour mayor and a Labour government. So what are they going to be doing under a Reform mayor?
We're not going to give in to their demands. Last time the tube strike.
So more strikes.
Well, listen, for me, and I don't know that if you're not willing to work, then you shouldn't be employed by TfL. You know, if you're going to bring London to a standstill, then what are you doing earning £80,000 running our tube station? And people say, oh...
So you'd fire the strikers?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to tell them, if you're going to keep striking, then you're no longer working for TfL. Because, and also, by the way, people say that automation's expensive. For sure it's expensive, and for sure it will take a long time, but it will make us immune to these kind of strikes. Sadly, because Labour's been run, the city's been run by Labour for so long, the unions control it.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if the union leaders represent all the workers. So I'd like to speak to the workers directly.
Well, that's always quite telling, like with the doctors' strikes, etc. One of the problems all politicians seem to come up against is that, you know, there are rules and regulations and you are allowed the right to strike. You're allowed to withdraw your labour in order to highlight the desperation of your demands.
Desperation is the operative verb. Is it desperate when they're earning £80,000 and last strike was because they wanted, I don't know, tickets to Legoland? You know, it makes a mockery of London. Hard-working Londoners are earning half what they can. They can't get to work.
Is the average TfL worker earning 80
No, but
grand?
the train drivers are, and they do strike.
So if they strike,
with overtime, they can earn
strike,
£80,000.
so you would have a very different approach to that.
I would go speak to the actual workers. You know, I would want to negotiate with them.
Okay.
But it cannot continue as it is. We're not a serious city if this keeps happening.
Here's a question from Karen in North Wales. Karen, how are you doing?
Fine, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Right. Going back to the Mandelson thing,
yeah,
everybody's talking about whether or not Keir Starmer knew. I've no doubt that he knew. But my question is, why Mandelson? Why was he prepared to move mountains to make sure that he got that appointment?
I mean, there was a school of thought at one point that Starmer wasn't that keen on Mandelson, but everyone around him was. Well, that makes Starmer just look even worse, if that's the way he's functioning. But either way, it requires, Karen rightly says, it required Starmer's signature on the dotted line for this to happen.
I mean, people forget that the ambassadorial role is a political appointment. It's a gift from the Prime Minister. And so he does take responsibility. And you are right, I've asked myself many times, why was he so insistent on Mandelson? Who does he answer to? Because he doesn't answer to the British people. And if there are other people that he answers to that are more important than the British people, then his position is not tenable anymore. Yeah. He's got to go.
This in from Barbara in London, who says, Karen, thank you very much indeed for that. I live in central London. Residents no longer get a congestion charge discount, and the charge is applied even at weekends. When my brother visits, he drives from Hertfordshire and has to arrive before midday. We can't go anywhere without paying the £18 charge. It's also destroying local businesses at weekends as well.
She's right. She's right. You know, local businesses are dying. High streets in London are dying. They're all vape shops, tourist shops.
Yeah.
And obviously it makes a huge difference if people can park. If you've got kids, number one, the tube's really expensive. And you want to be able to drive, park and go shopping or enjoy the sights in London. And it's not happening. He's created a two-tier London, those that can afford to drive in and those that can't.
Do you keep the congestion charge zone? What do you do
I'm
with
definitely going to remove ULEZ, and I'm minded to remove the congestion charge for now, but I'd have to look into it. But I agree. You know, there are other ways to make money.
Yeah.
And I mean, London's at a standstill, so I don't know if it's even stopped.
I've told this story before. Years ago, before the congestion charge came in, me and some mates were out having a drink, bumped into a fella in the pub just off Oxford Street, who starts telling us a story about the congestion charge that's coming to London. Now, we thought this man was a nut job because he tells us that they're going to put a wall of cameras all the way around a city. Now, how weird does that sound if you've never heard of that before? So we thought this fella is clearly ill, and we're rolling around laughing at this. And then my mate says, yeah, so but how are they going to know who the drivers are? And the guy said, because they're going to photograph every number plate. Well, that was us finished. We were on the floor at this stage. We thought this man is bonkers. They're going to put a wall of cameras and they're going to photograph your number plate. Where does he think he's living? What century does this man think he's living in, the weirdo? Of course, turns out he was absolutely bang on. That's exactly what they've done.
Yeah. And he will go after motorists with so much zeal, and he will not go after criminals. And they talk about putting facial recognition cameras all across the city. The Tories are all for it. And I'm not, because cameras are there for after the offence. They don't stop an offence. Only police and visible police on the streets could act as a deterrent and serious consequences. But also, Ian, they won't ban face coverings. So, you know, criminals can walk around with a cloak of anonymity while the rest of us are going to be tracked and monitored through this facial recognition, which I frankly don't trust the government to monitor me at my every movement.
Layla, we're out of time.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
We will speak very soon. Layla Cunningham with us here on the programme. This is Talk.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
Something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a Talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Yeah.
Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, the last knockings of this morning's breakfast show. Julia is going to be here in a few moments. We'll chat to her in a second. One here says, Layla, when you become Mayor of London, will you sell Khan's armoured Range Rover and put that money towards protecting Jewish communities? Layla's not here any longer, but I'm sure she would probably echo that. Let's get a voice note on Keir Starmer from Belinda.
Morning, Ian. Great show. Belinda here. I was just phoning up about the Starmer-Mandelson debacle. He knew that he was a wrong one from the last two positions that he had where he left. So why on earth did he even think of having him vetted in the first place? He's wrong. You know, you don't go and re-employ somebody who's stolen from your shop before. Oh, by the way, I'm coming here. I'd like to have a job. No, you're a thief. It's the same as Mandelson. Why on earth in the first place? This is what I don't get. This shows the utter delusion of the man. It's like everything goes over his head. This is Starmer, by the way, that he thinks that he can employ somebody to be an ambassador to the United States when he's already lost 2 jobs. Wake up, man.
That is Belinda. Thank you, Belinda. Wake up, man, she says, reference Keir Starmer. Julia Hartley-Brewer is here. I'm sure she'll be echoing that.
I'm awake. I'm absolutely gutted I wasn't on air on Friday when after this all broke. I mean, genuinely, we're asking a question this morning. You know, do you believe the Prime Minister's claim he knew nothing? I mean, he's the man well responding. I know nothing. I'm from Barcelona. Seriously, nobody believes the Prime Minister. I don't even think the Prime Minister believes the Prime Minister.
It's also now, Julia, it's kind of getting into sort of Monty Python, you know, like what have the Romans done for us kind of territory. Well, that person knew, that person knew, this person knew, they knew, but you didn't know.
Everybody knew, but no
Front
one
page
thought,
of the Independent knew,
but you didn't know.
No one